What's happening, guys, and welcome to the brand new Commotion Podcast Studio. We are absolutely ecstatic to be here. We've made some killer changes, and we've got some killer guests coming up. Couldn't have done it without the help of my two dudes, Logan and James. Appreciate and love you guys. If you missed the episode last week with Scott Rockefeller, man, go back and check it out. His beer is amazing, and what he's doing for the town of Pulaski is next level. This week, we've got John Dance, Chris Alderman. On the docket, mental health, recovery, substance abuse, and who knows what else. But before we get to that podcast, make sure you go show some love to Sport Around Trophies and Awards. Brad hooks us up with custom tumblers for our guests as well as the crew. I can't say enough good things about him. Trophies, plaques, awards, engraving, you name it. Brad, we love you. Thank you for what you do with the podcast. Give him a call at 540-613-1892 or look him up on the social media platforms. Take off your hats. It's time to go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh my goodness. Chris Alderman is back in the house. 2019, we had my man on and heard a story. And we've brought him back because he's got an alternate ending to this story. John Dance. What's happening, man? I have never met you before. I've actually heard your name before.
I know. I'm surprised that we haven't met because
every single time I find out, like, everybody's like, how have you not met this person? Or how have you not done blah, 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 you know? And I'm like, I don't know. We're just, the circles just don't, cross paths as much as squares do, I think. So, John, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me.
So let's do this. Let's start out. I'll have Chris, you introduce yourself, kind of tell me, a little bit about yourself, and then we'll move to John, and we'll just start this thing, man.
Right on. So, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, buddy.
I appreciate it. I'm still working in the mental health and substance use world. I'm doing harm reduction now, working in the harm reduction world, which is different from anything I've ever done.
Okay.
It's definitely the most humbling work I've ever done. And so, I've been doing that for a little over a year now. And so now up to this point, I think I've worked in every continuum in substance use disorder. Like,
Gotcha.
I think all the way from abstinence to MAT to psychedelic to harm reduction, like
Full gamut.
yeah, I've touched a little bit of all
So
of
you're
it.
basically like a Wikipedia of all things.
I've had some experiences.
Yeah, good.
the guru.
Well, we'll dig into that. John, how about you, my friend?
Where do I start?
Where are you from? Who you know? Who's your mammy?
Well, I was born and raised in south side of Richmond, Virginia, in Midlothian. But I came to Blacksburg in 1994 to go to Virginia Tech.
All right.
That didn't work out too well.
Did you flunk?
I did.
Dang it, John. I thought I knew you.
2 times. And then I just decided to step away from school, that it wasn't for me. I was working at a restaurant in downtown Blacksburg called Boudreaux's.
Yep.
And I ended up, every time I try to go back to school, they'd give me more money. And I'd said, why do I need to go back to school if I can continue to make more money? So
Yeah,
worked there for 12 years. Met my wife, girlfriend at the time. She graduated. We moved to Charlotte for a year. Came back to Christiansburg in 2007. I worked in the food service sales or broker business for another 13 years. Things went south
Okay.
and got myself into recovery. It took a while, but last week was 2.5 years, illegal substance and alcohol free.
Good job, buddy.
And I'm now back in school, finishing my undergrad degree. I'll graduate with my undergraduate degree in May, and I'm in an accelerated master's of public health program, and I'll graduate with my master's in 2024 of May.
Nice. So what are you wanting to do when you grow up?
So when I went back to school, I was fully into recovery and
Okay.
like, how can I help people? I want to be a counselor. That I was in treatment multiple times, and every time I would sober up, they'd be like, man, you're really good with people. You should, the nurses, the recovery coaches, you're really good with people. You need to, think about doing that.
Yeah.
So I went back to school to pursue human development, which would lead me into counseling. And once I got a little bit into that, I got my peer recovery specialist certification, a couple other certifications. And I was like, this is counseling.
Yeah.
Why do I need a degree or a license? I understand the legal issues behind that, but I have this whole recovery piece now. How do I help people not get to the recovery? And that's education, prevention,
Sure.
and not telling people not to, partake in things, just, how to do it the right way, or, just what could happen.
Because there is, there is a big difference in someone that has that addictive personality, that when they latch onto something, it's just balls to the wall. This is the way it is, and they can't just moderate, and they can't stop. So identifying that, I guess, would probably be the first thing within yourself, right? Is that the case? Just self-identification?
For some, yeah.
Yeah.
For some.
What do you think the most important first step would be for somebody?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. There's a lot of
I got a bunch.
there's a lot of people hurting out there, man.
Yeah.
And I think that we've gotten addiction and recovery and all this stuff wrong.
Yeah. So when we talked on the phone, you said, I have taken a new approach to looking at things, to looking at addiction from a different light. And that sparked me. And that's the whole reason I gave you that call. I was like, okay, because there's the old way. Identify. You must stop. You can't be near it. You can't do it. This is blah, blah, blah. Correct? Is that right?
Well, it started with the choice model is what it's called, where and that was mainly the legal system that stood by that approach, which was you're choosing to do this and you're going to have consequences, which means you're going to go to jail.
Yeah.
And then came the medical model, which labeled it as a disease. And so that's when we were able to do things like MAT with Suboxone, methadone, and other things. So we've got the choice model, we've got the disease model. I have issues with both of those. I really do. And I think the science is starting to back that up more. And obviously I didn't come up with the idea. This is just stuff that I've researched myself over the past couple of years. But, the thing is, man, is that, we think drugs are the problem, and drugs are not the problem. And, when we look at the people that use drugs, I've been doing this work since 2009. And I can tell you that me personally, I haven't met one single person yet that uses drugs addictively, in quotations, that doesn't have some form of childhood trauma. Not one. Not a single one. And so even the ones who say, well, I had a good life, I had a good childhood, I never had any trauma. If we start talking a little bit more, see, people think trauma is just this big capital T trauma of like sexual assault, incest, physical abuse, things like that. When, sometimes it can be as much as you're not allowed to cry at your grandfather's funeral, or there will be consequences.
Sure.
You need to man up, and you don't let people see you cry.
Yeah.
Or we will bust your ass.
Yeah.
That's a form of trauma for some people. In my case, it went back even further to being adopted, adoption trauma, stuff like that. I never thought about that before.
Yeah.
And so,
So we share that, by the way.
Yeah.
Adoption, and I think it leads to, I was born, I don't know if you knew this, I was born addicted. So I've always, and my parents did a really good job of letting me know from the get-go, I was adopted, that I was, substance addiction was in my blood, and just to be careful. So they told me that, and it's always stuck in my head for some, I guess it just.
Well, I think what benefited you is that, and it sounds like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you got adopted by people who loved you, cared about you, connected with you, and met the needs that you had as a child who was detached from their biological mother.
They had very good intentions.
Yeah, I got you.
So.
And so, when we look at what all these folks have been through, and then we see the drugs, well, we just want to deal with the presenting problem. Oh, you're using drugs. Well, here's drug court. Here's 12 steps. Here's counseling. Here's all these things.
Yeah.
That'll fix this problem. But what happened before that? And we don't have to dig deep into specifically what happened, but how is that manifested in your life now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's more my approach now. It's not about the drugs. It's not about the substances. It's about this person has some trauma.
Like,
Yeah.
how did you get?
Yeah. What's the drugs do for you? You know, what are they giving you that you're missing?
What does it make you forget? Right.
Well, it's just, you know, I think it's that love connection, man. You know, when you do opiates for the first time, specifically heroin, it feels like a loving hug that you've never had before in your life that you always wanted.
Really?
You know, you can feel it go through your whole body. You know what I mean? From head to toe. It's such an amazing fucking feeling.
Yeah.
And you don't ever forget that. And so then, and of course, you know, we get addicted to the substances and that kind of stuff, but you know, man, I can't justify in my mind using drugs for 4 years and label myself an addict for the rest of my life. That makes zero sense to me. Like, I'm much more than that. You know, that the disease of addiction cannot be the primary thing I got going on.
Yeah.
So that's where I started.
So,
Sort of. Yeah.
so identifying it as a phase,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and again, that's for me. Every individual is different. You know what I mean? Like, I did 12 steps for 16 years, and I'm not saying that 12 steps was terrible, awful, horrible, because I did a lot of good things came out of it.
Yeah.
But do I regret it now?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, because John, you said you were in and out. You'd go to AA or go to whatever, and did it ever really have an impact on you? Was it different for you than it was for Chris?
Yeah, I mean, kind of similar. You know, I went into treatment the first time, came out, did AA, but I could not get down with AA. But I was also still in my head that I was going to figure out how to drink responsibly, if that's a thing.
Yeah.
In my head.
Sure.
You know, and
Was alcohol your main thing? Is
alcohol.
that what you struggled
Yeah, I
with?
mean, I did most of my drugs back in my younger years, but when I look back at it, like, I was definitely doing it in excess to where I could have, if I'd have continued, it would have been a thing.
Sure.
But yeah, I went back in, right after COVID hit, I went back into treatment for the second time. A little bit more of learning. You know, people think treatment is like, or rehab as this, like, they're just throwing you in there and getting you sobered up and then put you on your way. But like, I learned a lot in there. You know, there's groups and classes and education. And so I learned a lot about myself, my brain, my body, you know, that whole mind, body, spirit thing. Came out, tried AA again, but we were in online because of COVID.
Sure.
I was drinking within 2 weeks and back in treatment within a month and a half. And September 14th of that year is the last time I drank of 2020. But when I got out, I was like, all right, I'm doing everything that they tell me to do this time because I don't want to go back. Whatever happens down the road, I'm going to go to AA, I'm going to get a sponsor, I'm going to do all these things. But once I got out, I started researching, like Chris did, about my brain, about trauma, past trauma, because I always thought something happened that this is why I was the way I was. And maybe it did. I haven't done a lot of revisiting of my past, but I did have that, you know, get over it. You're fine.
Yeah.
Sweep it under the rug.
Sure.
And like, I'm the person that lets things boil up to the top until they explode.
You and me both.
And then it's on, you know?
Yeah.
And so like, I didn't know how to handle my emotions. I didn't know how to handle my feelings the right way. So that I did a lot of like soul searching for that of like, and so the last treatment, the counselor told me about mindfulness and meditation. And I was like, well, that sounds like voodoo.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, but I'm crazy, so let's try it.
Yeah.
I practice it every day.
Okay.
And it saved my life. It just kind of, people think it's that calming your racing thoughts or calming your mind down, but like my mind and thoughts still race. It's just a way to hush them.
Sure.
To like be able to, you know, move on. And
so what was the final straw that made you say, I need to better myself. I need to stop this.
I never went to jail. I never got arrested. I never really lost anything.
Yeah.
But I knew it was coming.
Okay.
If I continued down that path, I was going to lose my wife. I was going to lose, after that, I was going to lose everything.
Yeah. Did it cause tension and struggle within your marriage? Was it to that point?
Yeah. After that third treatment, I thought she was gone.
Yeah.
You know, when I got home, I thought we'd talk it out and then she was out of there. But she gave me, I said, let me show you that I'll put in the work this time. And I did. And we're in the best place that we've ever been in our 18 years.
Good, man.
It's amazing. And they say it's a selfish program or selfish, you have to do it for yourself. But I did a little bit for her because I knew if I didn't have her with me, I wasn't going to be able to do it.
Now, do you think that you would have done it if she wasn't in the picture? Or do you think you would have just kind of continued down that
probably
path?
would have had a better chance of going back to drinking if I didn't have her.
Gotcha. So it's a fairly new path for you.
Yeah,
right?
So I've really just focused on like my physical health, how that correlates to my mental health, and vice versa.
Gotcha.
And then I throw the spirituality factor in, and it doesn't have to be, I learned the difference between religion and spirituality, because that was one of my childhood traumas was church.
Okay.
Because I just wasn't treated right in church because of the way I dressed or the way I looked or the way I acted.
Yep.
And it's like, we're all here to do the same thing.
I was in the same boat, man.
You know?
So I was a skateboarder, right? Back when skateboarding, you must be listening to Ozzy Osbourne and backmasking, and that was the kind of preconceived notion of a skateboarder, And I was the same, I was me. I was an individual, and I never felt like I was a part of that sanctioned body, if that makes sense. So yeah, I completely get where you're coming at from that. So how long has it been for you? When was the last drink?
September 14th, 2020.
Nice. Congratulations, man.
So I say I've been in recovery for about 5 years, but illegal substance free. And I always say illegal substance free is because I do take medication that is mind altering.
Yeah. Sure.
And that's because some people need that, And so I always like to clarify that because that's just what I needed. I don't want to take it forever, but I think in the situation that I am right now, back in school, going for 2 degrees, working multiple jobs, like I don't want to not be on it and see.
Yeah. Now, you don't think and you can tell me to step back, but you don't think that's a crutch?
No.
Taking that, because some people could look at it as like I have to do this, so that's another addiction. You know what I mean? No,
because I've talked to my counselor about it, talked to my doctor about it. They both have been with me through this whole journey.
Gotcha.
So it's been agreed upon because I don't want to. I was very against it, like thinking that it might have been a crutch. Like,
sure,
let's just get off of everything.
Yeah.
Heartburn medication, everything. Well, that didn't work out either. So
I'm going through that with man, I'm trying to come off my heartburn medicine so bad.
It's bad. Terrible.
Yeah.
I can't sleep on my right side, man. It just comes up every damn night. It's like,
I just had to change what I eat, man. I can't eat red meat, can't drink soda, can't do this, can't do that.
Yep.
So,
I stopped with all acidic food, like tomatoes, are the worst. And my timing,
like
my food timing.
Orange juice or
any
chocolate.
It's terrible. It's rough. So where are you at now? Let's talk about your new path. And I need some freaking clarification.
Okay.
Apparently, Chris lied to me about his story on our first podcast. Now, you couldn't have done a full... There had to be some truths in that.
Yeah, man, there was some truth in there for sure. But this
why did you lie?
Well, this is going to be a little bit. This might take a minute. Just
okay,
so you know.
Let's do it.
This might be a little intense.
Let me get settled in here, bud.
So here's the thing, man. When I came on in 2019, I've been telling that story since 2004, basically.
Sure.
2009 is when I started speaking, but 2004 is when my recovery journey started.
Yep.
And so I've been telling that story for a very long time. So prior to 2004, I talked about I'd been adopted at 2, right? I'd been raised by some people who were well established in the community, but a lot of things look pretty on the outside, but on the inside it's a little bit different. So there was some stuff that went on that I didn't realize was abuse, but later on found out, holy shit, like that's not normal. You know what I mean? So, it kind of started there, struggled through school. All that part was true. Smoked weed about 15 years old. I think I used to say 13, but it was really about 15. I did absolutely love it the first time I smoked it. That was true. Where it got tricky was, I never really started using heavy drugs until 22. I smoked crack for the first time. And up to that point, I had just been cannabis. I smoked a lot of weed in high school. Now, don't get me wrong. I was known for being, the stoner guy, but I was also bullied a lot, and I was also a bully. So there was that part. But, you know, I started smoking and crack doing that. That lasted for 4 years. So earlier when I talked about, you know, I'm not going to label myself an addict for 4 years of drug use, that's what I meant. Like, I used drugs from the year 2000 to the year 2004. You know what I mean? Well, probably 1999, late 99. And so, you know, when I was telling my story, when I went to treatment, man, my whole thing in treatment started off as a lie. And this is where the lies started, was in treatment. Because my whole life, man, I just wanted to fit in somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's all I ever wanted. That's why I joined the military, is because surely I'll fit in there. Yeah. You know what I mean? I didn't fit in anywhere in high school. I just didn't. You know, the woman that raised me was a school teacher that everybody hated because she was one of those mean-ass teachers. Yeah. You know, the man that raised me had no backbone. So, you know, I never was taught how to be a man. I never had any parents, man. And that's the bottom line. Like, I never knew what it was like to have that love for my parent. And that's what later on I figured out that I was looking for my whole life. But always looking for somewhere to fit in. So when I went to treatment in 04, and I'm not going to say where, but, you know, when I went to treatment, I went in there, I was facing a couple years in jail for a petty larceny because I stole some jewelry from an apartment I was working at. And actually a local officer, Cedric Hayes, I can mention his name. He was a CIT. He wasn't a CIT officer then, but that dude, man, he helped me out in a conversation we had before he put the handcuffs on me. But, you know.
What did he say? I got to know now. Because it affected you.
I just don't really remember what he said. I just remember how he treated me.
Okay, with respect.
Yeah, and not even respect, just like, he just listened. Okay. You know what I mean? And I know he was doing his investigation. You know what I mean? Like, he was digging. He was trying to get some stuff, but he wasn't being a dick about it. He was everything the opposite of what I'd been told cops were. Because I really didn't have a lot of interaction with cops up to that point other than running from them, you know? Yeah. But, you know, man, he was super cool and a really nice guy. And I saw him a few years later at a CIT conference for the first time afterwards. And it was like, wow, you know, that was really cool to see him again.
That's awesome.
So, you know, I went into treatment and I was there and, you know, I'd been going to the meetings and stuff, the 12-step meetings, been going to the groups and been, you know, participating in the house. And the counselor that I had said, based on your behaviors and your history, we feel that you've been sexually abused at some point in your life. I've never been sexually abused in my life, ever. And so then it got to the point where if you can't be honest, then there's no point in us meeting. So when you're ready to talk about it, because you're not going to be able to move forward, you're not going to be able to stay clean, you're not going to do anything until you talk about this.
Damn it.
I was like, well, shit, all right. So I went back to her and I was like, okay, this is what happened. So I made up 2 stories that weren't true. And that became my story for the next 16 fucking years, man.
Just so you could get to the, just
so I could fit in, just so I could be like, this is me. So, you know, and they treated me good. They were like, oh, you're so honest and you're so vulnerable. And, you know, they were like hugging me and shit and being all supportive. I was like, damn, this feels good. I can do this. Yeah. So here we go on with that recovery mask, that 12-step mask, that Mr. Recovery mask. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, I was 12-stepping and I was going to meetings and I had a sponsor and I was doing all this great stuff, man. But that's where the lie was. You know what I mean? Like, it all started, my whole recovery journey started on a lie. Gotcha. You know, that was a hard pill to swallow in 2019 when the shit went down, or 2020, you know. Well, no, it was 2020. And, you know, man, having to live with that was hard because I told it so much. It didn't take long before it just became my truth. You know what I mean? Like, it just became a part of who I was. You know, sexually abused, did drugs since he was 13, all this stuff, you know. But really what I didn't talk about, the truth is I've been suicidal since I was 8 years old. You know what I mean? I can remember looking in the mirror and saying to myself, I wish you were dead. You're so ugly. I fucking hate you at 8 years old. Yeah. But I was told, well, that was your disease of addiction. Well, how the fuck does that make sense? You know what I mean? So that's a philosophy that I lived by for 16 years, man. And so in 2019, shit just went downhill quick. I started having an affair. I was married, started having an affair. Lasted about a year and a half. So eventually I lost my job. You know, I had the 401 Peer Center doing great shit. I think I had that going on when I came here last time.
You did.
You know, and it was the highlight of my life up to that point. And so I lost my marriage, the stepkids, 401, all within a year, right? And so then here came the suicidal stuff again. You know, I went and bought a 38 special just with the intent to kill myself.
Damn, dude.
And, you know, it was the worst point in my life ever that I could remember. And even now that I remember most of it, it's the worst point in my life. Like, I wanted to die every day for 6 months. And so, you know, that's where the journey changed for me. That's when I started looking into trauma stuff and really looking at because I'm fortunate because I have all my adoption records. I have all my psychiatric evaluations when I was 11, when I got arrested the first time for breaking into a house.
Oh, man.
You know, I got diagnosed with all kinds of shit when I was 11, like depression and all kinds of stuff, man. So, but nobody wanted to look at that. They said it's a learning disability. It can't be mental health. It's got to be a learning disability. So I was never given a chance to really be who I was. So in 2020, man, you know, I started making some changes. I abandoned the 12-step program. Like, I just left, you know what I mean? I was like, I can't, like, because here's my thing with it, man, is like, I knew that whole 16 years, man, like, I knew, like, I'm not a spiritual person. I don't believe in God. I've never believed in God. It's not my thing. But I was forced to believe in something. And if I didn't, then I felt inferior. Like, I don't fit in here.
So it was like clicky type of a feel.
It's not really clicky. It's just part of the program. You know, it is the program. It's a spiritual program.
Okay.
You know what I mean? If you're not a spiritual person, you know, well, pray more. Okay, I'll try that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Just search.
just believe that we believe. Okay, I'll try that. You know what I mean? So my entire life, dude, I've had to sacrifice who the fuck I am just to please somebody else, just to maintain an attachment, to have a wife, to have a sponsor, to have a job. And it got to the point where I was ready to pull a bullet in my brain because I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
If I can't be authentic and be who I am, then why the fuck am I alive?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
So, you know, I had to take some time away and do some stuff, man. And I started doing some shadow work therapy and some psychedelics were involved with that. And started, you know, I talked to my psychiatrist and did all the stuff and started smoking cannabis. And I lost a shitload of people, man. You know, I lost people that I deeply, deeply cared about.
Over just your cannabis and going through that?
Yeah.
Oh,
just the change in lifestyle. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Like, you know, we're taught in there, you know, in the program I was in, we're taught that new associations, people who are not using it found a new way to live. And so I'm not, you know, people aren't allowed to hang out with me, man. And to me, now that blows my fucking mind. You know what I mean? So that's the journey, man. Like that's how the story changed. Is the whole sexual abuse thing. Like I had to let go of that. Like I don't even, you know, I don't identify in recovery anymore, man. Like I'm not in recovery. I'm being who I am.
Yeah.
Like even AA literature talks about that, you know, in the first sentence it says we recovered from this thing called alcoholism. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of opinions about it.
Do you think that those programs have their place?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're wonderful for a lot of people.
Yeah, it just didn't.
It wasn't for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I lied so much just to fit in, if that makes sense. Like I just wanted to be a part of something my whole life and wanted to love. And that's why I was so easy to be a womanizer and cheat, man.
Yeah.
Because I never, this is crazy, and I'm not trying to take this thing hostage, but that's what I realized when I met Gabor Mate, which is this huge trauma expert, man. He's a doctor. He's an amazing dude. When I met him, I got to be on stage with him. And
I remember seeing that.
So cool.
yeah, man. And for the first time, I was able to feel love at 43 years old. Like I could actually feel it from him and the audience. Like, and I never felt it before in my life. Like I probably had, but I didn't receive it because I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And so when I was able to do that, it was like, holy shit, I don't need all this validation anymore. Like, I don't need people's approval. So now I don't even like public speaking no more because it don't feel the same anymore.
Yeah.
And that tells me I was doing it for all the wrong reasons, man. So that fucking hurts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So now you've come around to the fact that, like, well, I was just doing that for me.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have the same impact.
But the hard part is I helped so many people.
You
man.
did.
And they
still
come and
does.
tell me that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the hard part is because I feel like a fucking fraud. But there's people out here whose life, they're great just because they were in one of our groups or they were, you know, I sponsored them for a little bit. But the thing is, man, is that we all have a right to be our authentic selves, and that can change at any time. Mm-hmm. When I was doing the 401 and when I was doing the 12-step stuff, I was being as real as I knew how to be at that time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even the womanizing stuff and the cheating, man, like I didn't know why I was doing it. But now I know it's because I couldn't feel love from the wife, so maybe I'll feel it from this person.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Just digging.
Yeah.
Just digging.
I just wanted to know what it felt like, man. But so many people got hurt, dude. And that was the hard part.
Yeah.
That was the hard part.
Now, you had mentioned a statistic earlier that when they were looking at people that had substance abuse issues, that almost without fail, if you went back in their life, they had some sort of childhood trauma. Correct? Yep. Have there ever been any like real super deep studies on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They call it adverse childhood experiences.
Okay.
So I think in the presentation I was in today from the CDC about the opioid crisis, I think 61% of people that identify with substance use disorder have at least one adverse childhood experience.
Okay.
And that is, like Chris was saying, it doesn't have to be, sexual abuse or psychological abuse. Like, it can just be, something minor that just you carry along for your whole,
Sure. Something abandonment issues,
Abandonment. There's 10 questions on there on the ACEs thing. And actually, I do ACEs training, so I'm actually doing ACEs training next week, and I did one a couple of weeks ago. But the ACEs thing it's just a series of questions. It's not a diagnostic tool. It's more of an awareness tool for people to recognize that, like, hey, this is a thing. But it was a study done on 17,000 participants. It's an ongoing study. And, it shows what it shows more importantly than the drug use is what it does to us physically, things like, the high blood pressure, you know what I mean? The diabetes and even the cancers, they're talking about now, that suppressed anger is looking to be a lead cause of cancer.
No way.
Yeah. And so, this is crazy.
Dang, it's nuts. It's a wonder I'm still upright if that's the case.
Mental health is
mental health. Like that's the thing, man.
A lot of what
I guess it kind of coincides with inflammation and uptightness and all that stuff.
It can,
which is the ultimate feeder for cancer.
A lot of it's epigenetics. Epigenetics is a thing because we've always been taught that, like, well, my dad was an alcoholic, so I'm gonna be an alcoholic. Well, that's bullshit, man. There's no genetic disposition. There's risk associated. There's a risk in your genes, but we're talking about if you were raised in an alcoholic home, that's what the increase is because you're raised around all that toxicity and all that trauma all the time.
And it becomes normalized to a young brain.
Well,
right?
our brains don't know. Our
Yeah.
brains don't know. I mean, we can't fight, flight, or freeze when we're an infant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we're going to suppress all that shit and we're going to internalize it. And our bodies are our central nervous system is naturally going to respond to keep us safe and alive. That's what our brains and our bodies and our central nervous system does. And so the problem that we have and that I had in recovery when I was doing that journey is that I couldn't connect the brain and the body. I was always trying to think my way out of shit, or I was always trying to feel my way into some shit, but I couldn't connect the two.
I got you.
You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
It was insane, man.
And I'm sure it goes so deep with, behavioral health, just the way people get so comfortable and they never question if what they're feeling until it's, until it's like an issue that they have to discuss.
Dude, that's a great segue into this topic. Men's health is so fucking important, man.
Yeah.
Like I had a colonoscopy done a couple years ago, and they said if I'd have waited till whatever age you're supposed to, I'd probably been in full blown.
No way.
Cancer. You know what I mean? Like they removed like 4 or 5 precancerous polyps, and I'm like, why aren't people more concerned about this shit? And then
we've been told not to.
Yeah, and then I went a couple years ago, and they told me I had Barrett's esophagus, right? Which is it's a pre-cancer thing in your esophagus, like thing. And I went back earlier a couple months ago, and they were like, it's gone. Like we don't know what happened. She said it was like the second time in her career she's seen it go away.
Really?
Yeah, man. I'm a big believer in the power of
that's that
manifestation.
THC, bruh.
It could be. It could be.
There's lots of studies on like mindfulness and meditation practices. And when I say that, I like to say my definition of those two words are so different than what anybody would think they mean. It's not the or I just made it what it was for me to help me.
Excuse me.
But it's energy, it's healing properties of all of that there's documentaries that show it's healed all kinds of cancers, like Chris was saying, like just went away. They don't know how. They weren't taking any treatment or anything. Like they were going to die, and all of a sudden the cancer's gone.
Wow.
Yeah, I fully believe that the body can heal itself. I mean, even, getting back into the addiction piece when we talk about, the disease part and all that stuff. I mean, we know that neuroplasticity is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
We know that the brain can heal itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why are we telling people otherwise, man? Why are we telling people that you got this, incurable and fatable fucking disease when it's not true anymore?
And I think we, especially as a society in America, have just normalized putting complete shit and garbage both into our minds, our hearts, and our bodies.
Yep.
Just as a whole, we have just normalized all these preservatives, all this unnecessary medicine, all these things that are just like, our body's like a healing machine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like,
Very resilient.
yeah, you get a cut, that's witchcraft to me.
Yeah.
That healed itself,
Yeah.
and to think that it can't do it within your body, it's just a machine,
Yeah. And I look at that. I mean, I even look at that from a spiritual perspective. I mean, to me, it's all inside of us, man. Like, I don't try to touch on the religion topic too much, but for real, like, I don't see any other way around it. Like, I think it begins and ends with us, you know what I mean, inside. But, I am a believer in the manifestation of healing. I'm not saying that, there's people out there with stage 4 cancer right now that would be listening and be like, fuck you. You know what I mean? Tell me that shit now.
Yeah.
And I mean, no disrespect to that whatsoever.
Sure.
I'm talking
Sure.
more type mental health type stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. And I ain't even talking about mental health. When we talk about stuff, when we talk about my journey and my thing, like I did, these last 3 years, man, I did this shit myself with the help of my fiance, my kids, and my dog. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, there was nobody there, dude. Like, nobody reached out. Nobody helped. There was no therapist. There was no program. There was no God. It was me.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit for that shit,
Yeah.
man, because to live the life that I've lived and still be sitting here now, you damn right I'm proud of myself for not pulling that trigger. You know what I mean?
And I'm proud of you.
Yeah, it's
And
crazy.
From an outside looking in, I think you knew it was you that had to do it.
Yeah,
You knew nobody else was going to
yeah,
do that. I think once you came to that consciousness within yourself, you said, I've done this. I lied my way through that.
Yep.
So I'm disassociating myself with that. I'm going to focus on me and healing me. There you are.
yeah. And
That's
it's-
from outside looking
Yeah,
in. You know?
and that's what I had to do, man. And I did. Like, I was very open about my journey. I always have been. Like, I've been an open book, but I was very open on social media when I was going through my shadow work therapy, and I got into this philosophy thing, man, with like Nietzsche and going all the way back to the beginning with like Socrates and shit, man. Like, I got deep into it.
Yeah.
And it was like, damn, all this makes so much sense to me right now. And even when I did the second LSD trip, man, it was just like, it all came to fruition, man. Like,
See, I am completely ignorant to all of that side of things.
yeah, most people are, man.
yeah.
Like, most people look at LSD and drugs like that as a recreational party, whatever.
Sure.
It's all about the intent, man. Like with anything, anything, it's about the intent.
Yeah.
And
So did you do, tell me how that, was it like the microdosing, or did you do like a full, like, hey, I'm prepared, we're set up, this is like the deal, like an ayahuasca type, you know? deal?
It was like that. The first time was to connect with the earth. You know what I mean? To connect with the universe, I guess. Not the earth, but connect with the universe. So I did it at nighttime. It was in the summer, and I took a hit of acid, hit of LSD, and I just laid on the ground, man, for I don't know how long, but you know what LSD does, I'm sure. But
Well, yeah, but not from personally. But yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, dude, like it does some stuff. Like, to me, that's knocking on God's door if there's one. You know what I mean? But like the star, like I really connect to the earth. Like, I could see the alignment of the stars. Like, it was just crazy, man. Like, everything moved. It's almost like you could see the universe outside of the earth. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I could see my place in it, if that makes sense. Well, it probably doesn't, but I could see my place in the universe in that moment, which means that I am worth being here. You know what I mean? Like and it's not, I have some supernatural reason to be here. I have some purpose. It's like, I'm here, I'm alive. That's worth something.
So
You know what I mean?
after you did that initial kind of, I guess, self-search and discovery, what changed for you after that?
The big change didn't come till after the second LSD trip, which was when the intent with that one was to get to the core of my depression, what I thought was depression at the time. And which it was. I mean, I was depressed for like 3 years. Yeah. But I wanted to get to the root of it. Like, I wanted to know why. And I also wanted to get to the spiritual, to the spiritual side of me. Like, if there's a God, I want to know what the fuck's going on with it. Why can't I connect to it? And so when I did that LSD trip, it was actually out at a lake, and literally the whole sky turned into demons, man. Like, even my dog was up there, turned into a demon.
I remember you telling me.
Yeah, and the lake just turned into this big black, like, pool of just, Nietzsche called it an abyss, the black abyss.
Jeez.
And like, I was staring into it, and then the mountains just were like all these like caves and shit, and just dwellings, and looked like houses, kind of like you could walk into them. And it's like I had an option of which door I wanted to go in. So I would sit there and I would go into each door. And each one of it was each time that I'd hurt myself, either cutting myself, burning myself, putting a gun to my head, cheating on wives, all the shit. Each door was something that I would done. What? And in the end, it got to the other door, the very last door. It was just me as a little kid there.
I was hoping you were going to go on a game show or something.
No,
that was just me.
It was a little boy. And it was me. Like, it wasn't what I envisioned me looking at, but it was there.
Yeah.
And it was just like, holy shit, man. Like, this little boy, right? This little innocent boy didn't know what the fuck was going on at 2 years old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He didn't know. I've done my best to survive up to this point, man. My intent, my heart, and all the things I did, all the people I've hurt, was never to hurt anybody. It was actually the opposite. It was like, it was for love, man. I wanted somebody to love me. Everything I stole, it was to fucking please somebody else. I guarantee it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I don't have shit. You know what I mean? And so, that second LSD trip, it was all about getting rid of the darkness and the demons. And that's what I did. And so it wasn't like I got rid of them. I was just, okay, this is what it is. And all that was my trauma, man. And it was just all my trauma just coming out.
So you were just seeing it, acknowledging it.
Yeah. And I saw what I thought of myself. I've always thought of myself as like an evil demon, dark, I wear all black, so I'm all mean and shit. Like, I'm the most non-mean person you'll ever meet in your life.
I love you. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Every time I talk to him, I'm like, man,
yeah. I mean,
I talk to you every day.
I got the pentagrams on my shirt, but it's not about all this, man. It's about that person inside of me that nobody else knows but me. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I know what my intent was in those times. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it was a trip, man. As far as the God piece, like, that's when I knew, like, all this is inside of me. Like, I can create whatever God I want in my head. You know what I mean? I really can. Like, if I want to go worship Jesus, I can do that anytime I want. It just doesn't work for me, man. Like, it's not my thing. Like, I have a hard time wrapping my mind around it. Like, how do people really believe this dude died and come back? What? And I'm not trying to offend nobody. Believe me, it's not about that. Like, I love people of faith. Yeah. It's just, I can't. My brain doesn't.
You can't get there.
Yeah.
And that's, listen,
to each his own.
To each his own. And that's the thing. We had a theologian on podcast, and we talked about everything, and he is a scholar for multiple religions, Yeah. And we went down the rabbit hole on that quite a bit. But let's move from that and being, what is your specialty, kind of the mental and behavioral side of the health field? Or what would you describe your specialty as?
So let's transition like this, because I talked to Chris December of 2021.
Okay.
Because I think I just surpassed a year sober.
All right.
And we had a conversation. And like, every time I talk to him, he blows my mind or makes me think of something outside of the box. And he left me with, as we were getting off I think we're on Zoom maybe, I think it was on Zoom. And he said, do me a favor. remove all the labels from you. And that's brother, son, husband, alcoholic, like asshole, whatever. And ask yourself, who are you really? And I had 2 weeks off from school because it was in December for Christmas break. And for 2 weeks, that's all I thought about. I thought about, who am I really? Yeah. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not an asshole. I am some of the other things, but like I was really stuck on, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not a drug addict. I'm an addict. I think everyone's addicted to something.
Sure.
So like, but and when I started to think like that, I started to think, now that the substances are removed, the primary problem was my mental health, not alcohol and drugs. And some will argue and say that was the primary problem. The primary problem is I never was taught how to deal with feelings, emotions, anything like that. And people will say, well, you're a man, and F that. Like, let's get over that, man. That's so 19 whatever. I started thinking, how do I start working on my mental health and using all of those things that I already incorporated? Like I stopped going to AA, which I talked to my sponsor about. I talked to my counselor about, and they're like, dude, if you stay sober, like we don't care what you do. And I started going down this like path of physical wellness, and as it relates to your mental wellness, and incorporating the 8, what is it called? The 8 dimensions of wellness. Okay. So that includes your mental health, your emotional health. I'm not going to say them all right, but that includes financial wellness. That includes employment wellness. That includes your social wellness, like all of the things. Because if one of those is not well, it's going to affect something else. Like if you're not financially well, then you're probably not going to be mentally well or socially well.
Yeah.
Or family well, So I started just like picking those apart and then just figuring out how I could be, take care of my overall well-being and how I could relay that to other people.
Sure.
Go to the gym. Like that's my meditation. Go to the gym, listen to aggressive rap music. That's meditation for me.
Nice.
Like it doesn't have to be seated meditation. It doesn't have to be, I practice Tai Chi, Qigong. That's moving meditation to me. But I just really started to focus and learn about the brain and how you can retrain your brain. That's the first thing I researched, was how to retrain your brain.
Yeah. What did they say the first step of retraining is?
Well, so we have all these learned behaviors. I read a book by David Goggins, the first one that he wrote, and he talked about like a callus on your brain. Yeah. And you have to shave that callus down. So I had to unlearn all these behaviors, all these coping mechanisms, all these things that I'd learned I'm 46. I started using when I was 15. I had to unlearn all of these things and either learn better things or incorporate better things. But that's what society's taught us. That's what our families have taught us. And we just think that's the truth. Yeah. And just it's not. Normal. Yeah. Like that's not the way it is. Like all of a sudden, and after COVID or during COVID, we finally figured out that it's been our mental health this whole time. Well, no shit. Like now they're advertising it in the NFL and all these other places.
Yeah.
But it's been that the whole time.
Yeah. Now the thing that I'm just going to ask these questions just because I like to talk about them is, do you think people have now started using that as a crutch, as an explanation for behavior, for bad behavior?
Well, I think every behavior is a form of communication.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anytime anybody is, talking about their mental health and there's something going on, regardless, you know what I mean? It just depends on what the severity of it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think every individual should be allowed to be exactly who they are. And sometimes people go to certain, I stayed a part of a program for 16 years just because I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
Some people do, they eat McDonald's 14 times a week because they think, they probably know better. But same with cigarettes. He said everybody's addicted to something, and it's the truth. It's, drugs get the bad rap because it's the most obvious. You know what I mean? Like
and it's illegal.
Yeah. And so
the addictions are so odd. Addiction to just feeling confirmation when somebody likes your Facebook post. That is a mental thing to
that's
me.
validation
it's like
addiction.
And how people are going back in and looking to see who's looked at their post or liked their post.
Shit, I do that every day.
Yeah, me too.
I do. I mean,
I'm like, did Chris Alderman like this post?
Yeah, well, I mean,
nope, not again.
Every time I see that little red little ones on there, I'm like, oh, somebody likes me.
Yep.
But man, we all got something. You know what I mean? And it's people just don't want to look at it. You know what I mean? And it all stems from I'm a firm believer it stems from some form of adversity in their life, some sort of trauma somewhere, and some of it may just be misinformation.
Yeah.
I was raised to be racist and homophobic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I knew my whole life in my head this doesn't make sense, and I didn't know why it didn't make sense till I got out on my own. I was like, oh, because people of other races aren't bad people.
Yeah.
People who have a different sexual preference, it's really none of my fucking business. I don't care.
Yeah. I'm of the belief as long as it's not forced down my throat, I don't care. If I don't have to pay for it, your bad decisions and whatever you want to do or be, go do it.
And I think that's the thing is that like mental health diagnoses, recovery paths, things like that are shoved down your throat.
Yeah.
So that you believe that you have to go to AA, you have to go to NA to recover, or be in recovery or heal from whatever it may be,
or even abstinent,
right?
Yeah.
Or even that you have to be abstinent to have a good life. Look, man,
what was that from?
That come from the 30s and the 50s and it started with with AA. It started with that. You know what I mean? With the abstinence model.
Oh, I thought you were talking about sex.
Well, I mean,
Is it
abstinence from alcohol or drugs.
Okay.
Well,
I was sitting there thinking, I was like, what does that have to do with anything?
That's a different program, But there's programs for that too.
I'm sure there are.
Porn addiction.
Yeah. And that's another big one too.
Addiction,
I mean, there's so many of them out there, man. But people don't want to look at that. You know what I mean? They don't want to look at their own stuff. They want to look at everybody else's stuff. And it's. For me, it all stems from pain. People use drugs because they're trying to comfort some sort of pain. Sure. In this case, it's emotional pain. You know what I mean? The same with people. People with obesity and eating disorders. It's the same thing. There's some sort of unresolved pain in there somewhere, and that food is giving them something to comfort that pain.
Food is good, Chris.
No, food's not necessary, man. It's overrated. We don't have to have food.
The ACEs study actually started off as an obesity study.
It did.
Oh, really?
And then they found information of because people would lose all this weight, and then they'd come back in 6 months later, and they'd gained it all back, and they started asking questions.
Yeah.
And the particular one I remember is this lady. She lost all this weight. 6 months later, she came back and she gained all of it plus more.
Yeah.
Started asking these questions, and she had been sexually abused. And so the reason she put on the weight is because she didn't want to look good to others because
she didn't want to be attractive.
Yeah. It runs deep, man. I mean, it really does. And it's, that's a perfect example of, there's no drugs involved in that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
just
food.
That's straight cheeseburgers.
And
that's just hunger
and then
to not be attractive. That's wild, man.
It is.
It runs deep. The issue that I think I need, and I hope you can provide some clarification on, is when it becomes institutionalized and when it becomes a part of the government and the system and a money-making wheel, right? That's when I'm like, you kind of take a step back from it and be like, well, are we identifying this so we can make money on it?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to get me started on the system, man, but yeah, the system that nobody, it don't matter what system you're talking about.
That's what I'm saying.
Whether it's a school
Healthcare,
system, education system, law enforcement system,
100%,
military system, all systems are fucked up in one way or another. You know what I mean? All of them are designed with some form of control in mind. You know what I mean? And there's always money involved. Yes. And so in the mental health and specifically substance use disorder world, there's so much money wrapped up in right now, Suboxone, MAT type stuff. Like that's been a thing for the past 10 years or so, not even 10 years probably. But there's so much money wrapped up in that if we look at something like, oh shit, well maybe this is a trauma issue. Maybe this is why people keep chronically relapsing, because we're not addressing the real issue.
Mm-hmm.
We're just addressing the drug issue that they have right now, which is the only thing keeping them going is the drugs. So we're going to take their drugs away. We're going to put them in some system somewhere. So they can't be their authentic selves. They're just going to do what you tell them to do, so they don't go to jail.
Money.
Yeah. And so it's just a repetitive thing over and over. But if people can learn to figure out who they really are, and that label thing, man, that's where I started. If people would just start removing all these labels they've been given and figure out who the hell they really are, and give themselves their own labels, then you'll realize that a lot of these systems, a lot of things that we've been taught is not accurate about who we are. It may have worked for Jim and Bob, but that don't mean it's going to work for me.
It's just so hard for me to look at something with an unwavering eye, if that makes sense, whenever I know for a fact that its main goal is to sustain itself. And if you find a cure or you find the answer and it becomes readily available, that side of that program ceases to exist.
Yep.
Whether it's cancer, whether it's obesity, whether it's mental health. If you really can identify and rid the root of that, it's no longer profitable. So why would there ever be a reason for any healthcare system, any drug manufacturer, any local community program that gets $400 million a year? Why would they ever not want to find problems and try to help people? Right?
Yeah. Well, you're nailing it. You can go ahead, John. I know you got some stuff on it, but yeah, you're on point.
Okay.
I mean, a couple things. So let's just say the opioid crisis.
Sure.
They were targeting people. That was a money-making.
Who was they?
Like Big Pharma.
Okay. So creating
and targeted Southwest Virginia, West Virginia, like
coal mines.
Coal mining.
Okay.
You know. And
so how did they target them? Just by over-prescribing?
Yeah, because they knew the coal miners were in a lot of pain, like physical pain, so they were prescribing. And
excuse my ignorance. I'm just trying to...
you're good.
But I mean, what we figured out is like, it was more about not the physical pain. It was more about the emotional pain. Because once, like Chris was saying, I have never tried heroin before, but opioids, once you get that feeling of all that emotional pain going away also, along with your leg pain or whatever it may be, like, you want some more of that.
Yeah.
You know? How can I make my anxiety go away?
Yeah.
I'm going to have some drinks. Well, guess what? You know how my anxiety went away? I quit drinking.
Yeah.
I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression. Guess what? I don't have anxiety and depression anymore because I don't drink anymore. It was all alcohol.
Or is it because
induced.
you got in a better mental place?
Well, that too.
So, and that's my thing. Like, is it,
But
if we get that mental thing out, that's just a good side effect of that. If we get our eating right, heartburn's gone. That's just a good side effect of making that decision, you know?
Yep.
So it's kind of hard sometimes to like say, I got rid of this because I stopped drinking or I stopped taking drugs or I stopped doing this. It's like, no, you got your mind in the place it was supposed to be. That's why I think mental health is so freaking important, and understanding yourself just like you did, you know? And that's why I understand why that is in place. Getting people to understand themselves and where they're at and moving forward with that. The problem that I've seen on a very superficial level is that it makes a lot of freaking money, and I feel like they overdiagnose and they introduce all of these things for people to get so freaking upset about and get so mad about and pin us against each other just so they can make money. And that kills me. It absolutely kills me.
Well, the
it's
diagnosis
like have you ever, it's like if somebody's never been suicidal, right? They've never been suicidal, but they go into these mental health, they've taken drugs, but they've never been suicidal, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, so when was the first time you thought about suicide? I haven't.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We'll revisit that.
Yeah.
It's like, I just feel like they just jab and coerce and like just to create issues, man. I've seen it on.
Yeah. Well, I experienced it. You know what I mean?
And
like,
you did.
Yeah, I experienced it. But I really think, man, like, taking your example of the food thing, I forget how you put it. Like, what was it you just said? Something about just eating and what was the example you said?
I'm not sure.
I don't remember.
As far as obesity goes?
Yeah. But, if you look at, just like, the food piece of, why do I eat this way? If people really want to know why they eat that way or why they're gaining weight like that, then go back and look at how you were raised. Were you raised just to eat whatever you want? Or were you raised where you had to feed yourself and now that you got food, you just eat whatever the fuck you want?
So was it gluttony or starvation that made you feel that way?
There's so many things. Or is it, you were cheated on at your junior prom and you never were allowed to heal from that? I mean, that's a real thing. Like people don't want to look at that because we're taught to just pull up our bootstraps and you just keep on rolling. It's not a big deal. The problem is trauma doesn't go anywhere. Like it stays with us our entire lives. There's nowhere for it to go.
Yeah, recognized or unrecognized. It's
So people think that trauma is like this event that happened. That's just a traumatic event. The trauma is what stays with us and manifests through drugs and obesity and sex and gambling and exercising and all these things that we do, overachieving. All these things that people do that they beat themselves up for, they get diagnosed with. If they really go back and look at their lives and see where it started, you know what I mean? It'll solve a lot of people's problems. Now, again, there are people who need to go be put on medication, who need to go see a therapist. I 100% support that. But that's temporary. It shouldn't be a rest of my life kind of thing. Once I get through this shit and I figure out who I am, dude, I haven't been suicidal or depressed since November of 21. You know what I mean? It's like, and that's huge for being that way for over 40 years.
Yeah.
And it's because I was finally allowed to be myself. And I think that's what's missing. George Carlin said it best. Like the people, whoever they are, they don't want us to be critical thinkers. They don't want us to think for ourselves.
And that goes right back into what I was just talking about. It's like we have basically taken away critical thinking because we have forced so many options and so many outs and so many medications and so many programs to where other people think for you and tell you what you should be feeling instead of just actually thinking. We look on Google.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't feel the best. My stomach hurts. You got AIDS. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And that is, I feel like that is the biggest problem. And back to the whole thing of that, just that vicious circle of money making and overfeeding people on social media and peer wise.
It's toxic. I mean, it can be toxic, man. It is. And a lot of it is about money. A lot of the mental health systems are about money. I think that what we can do as individuals is truly just look at ourselves and who we are and what our motives are and why we do things. I know for me, I worked in jobs for a long time just because of the image that I thought that it gave me.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like I had the haircut, I had the dad bod, I had all that shit. Dude, I lost 90 pounds in 10 months.
You look good, man.
When my depression lifted.
You know what I'm saying? Not like...
Well, yeah, I mean, the beard was coming in.
It does look nice. We were noticing your beard when you first got in. I was like, dang, that thing's glistening.
It is. It's nice. I need to wash it tonight, though. But no,
hey,
man.
hold on one second. Hey, Logan, would you show up in the fireplace real quick? Watch this.
Sure, up.
All right, we'll see you.
All right, peace up.
Wait, what?
LSD trip number 3.
That's crazy, man.
No, we just got it set up so if I have to talk to him, he can show up in the fireplace.
That's really cool.
How do we get away from the wheel of government-controlled programs that are telling us what we're doing? How do we get away from that?
Somebody asked me the other day, like, how do we make change within the government? I said, well, all these old dudes got to die off because they're the ones that are pull your bootstraps up, get over it. We don't need this help. But I mean, we see that a ton of money now is going towards substance use and mental health disorder. The opioid crisis money is coming in, will be coming in soon. So put that more towards treatment or
harm reduction,
mental health,
Harm reduction's a big thing. There's a lot of money coming in for harm reduction.
And that's the thing.
we'll get into that in
you
just a
got to
second.
teach people that for recovery, but even in mental health, there's multiple different pathways to get to a point that you can be yourself.
Yeah.
And like start to learn about yourself and who you really are.
Yeah.
You know? And I think by being able to relate to someone like me or Chris that have been through it,
Yeah.
you know, it's easier than having to go to a counselor.
Oh, 100%.
Maybe you don't, you know, I deal with this all the time. Like they go to a counselor, they don't click with the counselor, they don't want to go to another counselor. They just dumped everything on this one counselor, and then they got to revisit it with another one until you find someone that clicks.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that necessarily I'll click or Chris will click, but like we can relate a little bit better because we've been through similar yet different paths, you know. And if I'm not the right person, I can find you someone,
Yeah.
you know, that can help.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. I truly believe that we as a community and a society, I mean, we can do this. It just really, it takes a lot of compassion. You know what I mean? It takes recognizing that everybody has a story. Just because somebody's holding a sign in Walmart that says I need money or I ran out of gas, who cares what their motives are? I don't give a shit. I'll walk out there and talk to them. It doesn't matter, man, if I have time. You know, I'm not saying everybody needs to do all this woke culture type shit, you know, and I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that if we get back into handling our own affairs, right, helping people winning if we can, and just having some compassion, man, we won't need therapists as much. We won't need counselors as much. But the problem is that we all have solutions for everybody else when we don't even know what our own fucking solutions are.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I can tell you how to be a, you know, whatever, you know, like, I don't know, I could use so many examples. The worst one that comes up for me is Christian based, but you know, I have preachers come up to me and talk to me all the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, they'll, you know, make comments, and I respect it to a certain point until they cross a certain line of putting their hand on my shoulder and going to pray with me or whatever, or pray for me. But the thing is, I still have to treat him with the same respect as I would the person I just gave syringes to,
Yeah.
you know, clean syringes to,
Yeah.
because we're all in this together. Like, I don't know his story.
Yeah.
Well, I do now, because since I've heard it, but
Yeah.
people love telling me their story, man. Everybody tells me their fucking trauma.
Yeah.
And I think it's because we have to be able to be authentic, man. And people know I'm authentic. Like, I don't, and I'm not saying that in an arrogant way. Like, people know I don't give a shit. Like, I'll just tell you what a great or horrible person I am. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
But, you know, we've all got to be allowed to be who we are, no matter what it is. If, like, I used to hate 12 steps, man. When I left, I hated the fucking 12-step program, especially in New River Valley.
Yeah.
But the thing was, I was hurt, man. Like, I was in a lot of pain. I know what the 12-step program does for people. Like, I know it helps a lot of people. And I know people find their authenticity in there. I could not. So that doesn't mean that I'm anti everything else. It means it doesn't work for me, so don't push that shit on me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not going to go by clean and dirty and abstinent or not. It's not about that for me anymore. That's not the life I live anymore.
Yes.
But I can still help people, man.
Yeah.
Like, and I just wish people would show me that love. And the same with all people. You know what I mean? Regardless of what they're doing.
Yeah.
If we could just get back to being good human beings.
Yeah.
That would be a good start.
Like,
would.
that's the thing. That, like Chris said, the compassion.
Yeah.
Just, you know, like rehab, treatment. I mean, the breaking the stigma around mental health and substance use is huge too, because people have this like idea of what an addict looks like or what an alcoholic looks like. Well, if I hadn't said anything to you, would you think I'm an alcoholic?
Nope.
But
I had no reason
I mean,
to,
I
you know?
was, you know, I thought I was one
Yeah.
you know, but when I went to treatment, there were doctors in there, lawyers, Virginia Tech professors, police officers, moms, dads, grandfathers, 18-year-old, you know, look just like me.
Mm-hmm. It's a undiagnosable type thing from the outside, typically, you know?
Well, it's just because we're not, I mean, literally, and I actually do a training on this called Demystifying Harm Reduction and Substance Use Disorder. And literally 10% of the people that we're diagnosing or labeling as addicts or alcoholics are actually addicts and alcoholics. 10%. right? So what that means is that we are misdiagnosing and mislabeling people. And so when you get to a certain point, I'll just tell my story of it. When I got into, recovery and the 12 steps and stuff, man, it was like I finally fit in somewhere. I'm doing all this great shit. People love me, blah, blah, blah. I had to play that part, you know what I mean? And knowing in my mind I'm lying, I'm telling my story in front of people, sometimes weekly, telling them about how I've been sexually assaulted or sexually abused as a child, knowing it never happened. I carried on and done that shit, right? So what that tells me is that had I not went through my depression of 2018, 19 to 2021 or whatever, I would probably still be doing the same shit, still be hating myself, still knowing I'm not being who I truly am, still have a dad bod, and still just wishing I was fucking dead every day.
Yeah.
And I know I'm not the only one. Like, it's a far-fetched idea to people in recovery, some people in recovery who have cut me off or don't want to talk to me anymore because I don't meet that whatever.
Yeah.
But the thing is, man, I'm happier now than I ever been. And I don't know what to tell you, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where was you when I had the gun in my fucking mouth? You know what I mean? That's my question. Like, you worried about what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Where was you then?
Worry about, here's my thing. I am a firm believer in worry about yourself.
Yeah.
Do your thing. Yeah. That's why I've always said, politics aside, religion aside, all that stuff aside, do you.
Yeah.
Don't.
People don't want to do that.
I don't need to know it. Just do it. It's just like, I don't care. My problem starts to become when it's like force you. And that's part of the obvious issue with religion with you too, is just like that force factor of like, hey, I'm cool. You're a good person, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like forced. It's like, oh my gosh.
Well, for me, it's more the inferiority police. Like it's almost people like subconsciously make others feel inferior if they don't believe the same way. And that's the part that gets me.
Yeah.
Like some people will say, well, you just ain't there yet.
That's rough.
No,
That's shitty.
there is no yet.
Yeah.
All right. Like I've done everything that you could possibly think of, right. To try to match your faith, but I can't.
Yeah.
And so, it's really, but I still have to try to respect and have compassion for those folks. The thing with me is, man, is like, the people that have hurt me, I have my issues with them.
Yeah.
If somebody hurt you, you've got your issues with them, but those issues don't become my issues.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't get pissed off at the people that hurt you because that's your shit to deal with. You know what I mean? So it's like I can't get pissed off at a whole 12-step fellowship because a few people hurt me. And so I think all these systems and all these programs have a place. The problem I have with it is that we're not allowed to be who we really are. That was what it was for me. It's like I wasn't.
And nobody's teaching that, right?
Right. It's like, well, they claim to, what I mean?
Yeah.
They claim to, but and I hate to keep going back to the 12-step thing, but even, with the spiritual piece and the God piece, man, like you can't force that on someone.
No.
Like I can't pray to a doorknob, dude. Like that was one of those
You
suggestions.
could.
I mean, I can, and I've tried that. Like I've
Have
tried
you?
doorknob. Like when I first got into recovery, like, okay.
People used to freak out.
I was like, all
Are
right,
you
I'll try
shitting?
that.
People used to freak out when they would say that in treatment. When
Pray
they'd
to
be
a doorknob?
We don't care what you do.
Yeah, you just need a higher power. Some
Just a
sort of
higher
higher
power.
power. You know what I mean? And so
all right.
a lot of people that come into, recovery and stuff, like they have some pretty big issues with God. You know what I mean?
A lot of
Because-
religious trauma.
Yeah.
That's so sad. It's kind of to my brain, it's like televangelism versus actual, good spiritual guidance.
Yeah.
It's like there's the yin and yang. It's like the liberals versus the Democrat view, the Republicans versus the far right. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, stop giving everybody a bad name. There's moderate and then there's extreme on every angle.
It's almost comedic to me. It's comedy to me at this point. Like I'll be 45 this year, and that's not old, but it's old enough to find this shit funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I used to get offended,
Yeah.
and all this stuff, but it's just funny at this point. You know what I mean? Like what else can you do but laugh when somebody comes up and says, "Well, I know you don't believe what I do, but you will eventually, and if you don't, then you're going to go to hell."
Yeah.
What the fuck universe am I living in?
Right.
So that's tough. And you probably know, I am a Christian.
Yeah, I do.
I believe what I believe.
I do. Yep.
Have I ever forced it on you?
No, absolutely.
I
not.
lead by example.
Yeah.
I'm just a good human. If you ever come to a point in your life where you'd like to know how I feel, you already know
Thank you
that
for
I'm
saying
here.
that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I I just don't feel that side of Christianity.
Right.
The force it down your throat. You know, my grandfather was a Methodist preacher, salt of the earth human, taught me everything about farming, gardening, woodworking, how to be a good man. You know, I had a really positive experience with him and my grandmother and my mother. And it was a good experience for me. The bad experience I had was with the actual religion aspect of the church itself. And
That,
how
like, conformed piece.
how I was made to feel an outsider for skateboarding or listening to freaking, you know, Tupac. You know, it's like, really? Is that what we're doing?
That's
You know,
exactly what I was.
it's wild. And I remember being in a youth group one time, and this was the point at which I went, no. We actually went to the mall and went to one of the CD stores, and they were like, all right, go and find album covers that you think might be devil worshiping music. And I was like, oh my gosh, are we doing this? And I remember picking that, like, Two Live Crew and like stuff like that, and like Twisted Sister, you know. It's just like, oh my gosh. And that's when I found, I was like, okay, now it started to click to me, like, this is ridiculous. To me, it's just I'm just a good, you know, I'm a good person, and I believe what I believe. You believe what you believe. Just don't force it. And again, I'm back to it. Don't force it down my throat. Let's rock and roll. Let's be friends, man.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Same all the way around. Politics, all that shit. You do you, man. You know, it's not good to me. It can change you, who you are as a person, if you let it. If, like, you're just, I am this and I am that and I am this and my labels are this and this and this and this.
Yep.
I don't care. Why should I care?
Yeah.
Why should I ever care? I'm looking at you as a person. I want to know you as a person. I don't care what your pronouns are. I don't care what you identify as. I don't care if you vote this way, that way. I don't care if you believe in recycling or setting the world on fire.
Yeah.
If we talk and we have a good time,
That's all that matters.
awesome. Do I think some of that shit's just absolutely outlandish? Well, fuck yeah, I do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's,
I mean,
you know,
there's a lot going on in the world today, man. But, you know, the thing is that we're evolving as a society and as a culture and as people on earth, man. And, you know, I work in a field of harm reduction where, you know, I do work with transgender folks. I do work with people who use drugs daily. You know, I work with sex workers. And, you know, the thing is, man, is these are some of the best people I've ever met in my life. You know what I mean? And we're losing so many beautiful minds because of fucking stigma, man. And if somebody wants to call themselves different pronouns from what they were given at birth, those are my people. And the reason I say that is because they are just trying to be fucking individuals, man. They're trying to be who they are because nobody's ever let them before.
So with that being said, why even announce it?
To stand up for the ones who can't stand up for themselves. There's so many kids, man. Like, it's horrible. Like, kids get bullied as it is, but when you have a kid who feels out of place because they're feeling, take a male, for example, who's feeling feminine, likes wearing female clothes, doesn't know why, can't tell mom or dad, can't show it to the other kids at school. So they're keeping all that shit inside, man. I know what that pain feels like. Not because I ever experienced being transgender, because I experienced the pain of not being accepted for who I am or loved for who I am.
Sure.
And so people have a hard time with the pronouns and all that stuff, man. But it's really, I hope at some point we get to a time where it's no different from people who get a tattoo. You know what I mean? Some people hate it getting, you know, you get a tattoo, then you're this, or this.
Yeah.
I'm none of those things. People who have different pronouns, people think they're this, or this. They're fucking people, man.
Yeah.
They're just like me and you.
And for me, from my point of view, is like a tattoo, that's a self thing. It affects you and only you. If you get one on your whole back, it affects you.
Yeah.
I'm not forcing you to look at my tattoo.
Unless you get a swastika on your
True.
forehead.
And that's a very blatant statement.
Yeah.
But it's weird to me that for me, I have to make somebody feel better by calling them something that, to me, they're not.
Well, most people who are transgender that I know, or that go by different pronouns, they really don't. They're not going to get offended if you don't call them by the pronoun that they want to be called by. They don't get upset. Now, there are some that do, unless you do it just like we were talking about earlier. Unless you do it from a disrespectful way, or you're trying to push a boundary, or push an envelope or something. The bottom line, man, is it should just come. I hope that someday it comes just second nature. Just that's who they are. That's where they're at in their life, and that's what they're doing.
Now,
because it doesn't affect me. Like their pronouns don't have shit to do with me.
And that's
You know what
my
I mean?
thing.
I think
It's
that's
like,
what it is. It's like, why, if they want to identify as whatever they want to identify as, why does that affect me?
Yeah.
I got to worry about me.
Yeah. And I don't, in my thing, I genuinely don't care. I'm just asking these questions.
I get it,
It's like
No, it's a big,
I don't know.
especially in college. Like when I went back to college,
Yeah.
and I had to start saying my pronouns. I was like, this is weird, but
Yeah. To me, and do you think, again, because of what you do, they have a mental issue that they're having to do this to fill a void, just like you would do for a cheeseburger or for a fucking hit of heroin. You know what I mean? It makes you, just like you described, you had a void and you figured out that it was derived from a mental issue that you had that you had never addressed.
Yeah. Well, the trauma. Yeah.
The trauma.
The trauma. Yeah.
So the trauma of some mental issue has now made this person seek attention and need that in the form of whatever it may be, XYZ, transgender, needing a litter box, any of this stuff.
Yeah, and even stuff with the litter box and all that stuff, man. Like that's the media.
That's why
doing
yeah.
media stuff.
Yeah,
and so.
Well, even just me saying I'm a rock or I'm a whatever, like if the argument for mental health and substance abuse plays into and obesity plays into it, do you think it plays into that?
I would say it depends on the person. I don't think anybody's doing it for attention. I really don't. I think that's the same as when we used to say people would cut for attention. Even if they were, why? Why did they need the attention?
So let me just stop you there.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then why even identify it?
As far as the pronoun piece?
Yeah, if it's not for attention.
I think it's more about making a stand for being allowed to be exactly who we are. If we want to say, like, let's say today I want to change my pronouns, I want to be they and them, I have a reason for that. And I actually wouldn't mind considering that sometimes, just because, believe it or not, being a fucking 44-year-old white male in America who looks like I look with a beard and tattoos and doing what I do, I get stigmatized.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, I can imagine what some other folks who have been through, horrible things in their lives. Sexual abuse is prominent in this world, man. Like, there's so many people that have been sexually abused that have never been allowed to talk about it.
Yeah.
Not that they've never been allowed, they've just never been in a safe enough place to talk about it. What we want to create, what I want to create in the community I live in, and what I leave for my kids, man, is for everyone to have somewhere safe to fucking go to be who they are. And the people who want to change their pronouns, and now we've got this big drag queen thing going on in Tennessee where everybody was freaking out because of fucking drag queens. Who gives a shit, man? We've been making movies about drag queens like Patrick Swayze and his name, Tu Wong Fu or some shit with Wesley Snipes. Nobody made a big deal then.
Yeah.
And so people are making a big deal. The reason people want to bring it to attention is because there's so many lost people out there who feel like I don't fit in as what people say I am. Mm-hmm. Where do I go? Who do I talk to? And so if we want to label it and diagnose it as a mental health thing, we can, but it's just adding more stigma to it. You know what I mean? All we're really doing is just letting people be who they are, whether it's for now or forever. It really doesn't matter. Why can't we just love them?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's the thing. I'm all about it.
Yeah.
I'm all about loving you for who you are. It becomes hard when it's like, I love you for who you are. When you're talking about removing labels, like was a huge thing for you. Mm-hmm. Like, remove those labels. Who are you without this? Who are you without that? Now we're talking about putting labels back on you to identify you.
Well,
as
we're allowing
something.
people to put their own labels on
Yeah,
them.
that's- yeah.
And to me, that's the biggest win of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I can identify as a rock if I want to. Who's going to do any fucking thing about it? You know what I
think
mean?
you might be a rock. I don't know.
I could be a rock. But
I mean, I think we just put too much into it.
I agree.
I think a lot.
I 100% agree.
I think at some point in time, the people that are yelling and screaming about this are really putting all of this effort into why do they have to identify as this? Because they don't want to look at their own shit.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
like people
understandable.
don't want to look in the mirror at their own shit that they may be going through or don't know that they're going through or have been going through, and push it off on everybody else is what everybody else is doing, is identifying as, you know, they, them, or whatever else it may be.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's a lot of this, the stigma too, is that people don't want to look at themselves in the mirror, you know, so they want to label you as an alcoholic or a drug addict, when in a sense they need to take care of their own side of the street, you know.
And most of them have been hurt by something or someone.
Right.
You know what I mean? It all goes back to pain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People have been through a lot of pain.
And that's what I'm saying. I think the people that are attacking the people for identifying as whatever, they've got their own issue, right?
Yeah.
It's the people that like me, I don't care. These are genuine thoughts, you know. It's like I'm trying to genuinely understand it as a man, as a human that doesn't care if you float away. You know,
Like
it's like
educational
yeah,
purposes.
you know. And I'm just it's a genuine question. Like, we're so easy to say, well, they have this issue because of trauma. They have this issue because of trauma. They have this issue because of trauma. But then we bring up another issue or another stand or another, you know, outward pouring of, you know, self-identification. And I think it's only fair that we really have to look back to some sort of trauma to identify what made you feel that way.
Well, a lot of that is going to be, I mean, if we want to get real about it, a lot of it's community trauma. A lot of it's the trauma that we experience just living in this country or
for
in this
sure.
world on a daily basis. You
That's
know what I mean?
understandable. Yeah.
Like, we've been through a lot. You know what I mean? There's still people that are drinking themselves to death because of 9/11 who's never been able to talk about it. You know, and you know, there's all kinds of people hurting out here. The thing that I would tell people who don't understand the pronouns or the transgender or the drag queen stuff or any of this stuff, man, is to go hang out with some people who are doing it. You know, they're not scary people.
Yeah.
They're human beings who are just wanting acceptance and love, just like all of us want. you
People
know?
are scared of what they don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, I'll bring some transgender people onto this podcast and we'll sit down and talk about it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because
And I would be up for it.
that's what it's going to take, is for some people to actually listen to what these folks are saying as to why they
Yeah.
do what they're doing and what it's really about. Because for me, what I see is individuality. And so I will love these. I will stand up for folks to the bitter end. Anybody who is being, you know, stigmatized and held down because of their color, because of their sexual orientation, because of their pronouns, because of their kids, whatever.
Yeah.
Those are the people that I want to stand with.
Yeah. And good on you, man.
Because
Right.
nobody else will, man. Who the fuck else is going to?
Yep.
You know what I
Yep.
mean? And so that's my thing. And I'm not a big, direct care kind of person. You know what I mean? What I want to do is to educate other people, you know, on what's really going on. You know, the people that don't know, the ones who sit in their nice houses or the ones who sit in their nice jobs, who don't know that, just today I've met probably a dozen people who are sleeping outside right now as we speak.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I can't do a damn thing about it other than what I've already done today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the part that hurts me.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, let's do this. Let's take a quick commercial break and we'll come back and I want to dig into your path and where you're going from here.
okay.
All right?
Cool.
Hello?
Hey, Drew, it's Rob with Thacker Real Estate Group. I actually got your number from Brad. He had mentioned that you had a house to sell in Virginia.
I don't think so.
Yeah, we actually met. Yep, that's me. Hey, I thought you might want to chat. I'm in the area right now and would love to stop by.
Well, I'm getting ready to watch a video.
Oh, nice. What are you watching?
Oh, just some scary movie.
I love scary movies, actually. If you have time, I'd love to stop by and talk about selling your house.
Uh-huh.
The first time we talked, you said that you might have been talking with someone else.
No.
I know for a fact that you're talking to another realtor.
What did you say?
I said I know for a fact that you are talking to another realtor. You want to play these games, answer the phone like, hello, and all that stuff. We went to dinner with Brad and Angie like 2 weeks after that party, and you're sitting here talking to me about selling your house, and now I find out it's somebody else?
Ugh, look, I gotta go.
It just kind of hurts, Drew. I thought we had something. We had such a connection. I just want to know who. I just want to know who.
Yeah, Freddy Krueger.
No, that's more lies. I'm pretty sure that's what you're watching right now on TV. You can end it now. Just tell me who, Drew. Tell me who it is.
The guy in the white mask who walks around and stalks babysitters.
Oh, I knew it. Oh my gosh. Of all the people that you could have used. Bye, Drew. This is goodbye.
Well, we're back. We're missing Chris because it's not a long enough break. Yeah, there he is. It's not a long enough break for everybody to use the bathroom and refuel. So, but we got John here.
Hey.
Yeah, man. So you work at Virginia Tech, is that correct? Are you a student right now?
So yeah, I'm a student in undergrad and grad.
Pull that mic just a little closer.
And then I am like an unofficial teaching assistant for a professor of mine.
Gotcha.
In 3 of his classes. So I do a lot of things with him. And then I'm also a graduate research assistant.
Okay.
On a recovery project. So
nice. Well, what's that about?
It's called Empowering Rural Communities through the SEED method in regards to the opioid crisis.
Okay.
So we're focused on like 3 different counties in Southwest Virginia, Russell, Smith, and Halifax. And just how we can better the community.
Sure.
And that's pulling the whole community together. That's really what we miss when we talk about all of these issues is the connection between people.
Yeah.
I always say the opposite of addiction is connection.
Yeah.
That's
because addiction seems like such a solo thing. That's your addiction.
We saw what happened during COVID.
Yeah.
Everyone got isolated. Overdoses went through the roof.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. Divorce.
Yeah.
We were isolated with either ourselves or our significant others.
Yeah.
And people weren't able to get to meetings.
Yeah.
Or to their recovery groups or to their mindfulness practices or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And some people lost their shit.
I think we're going to look back on that as just such a debacle.
But we also can look back on it as, COVID saved my life.
Yeah, that's true.
I almost died.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but you can die from detoxing from alcohol, but you can't die from detoxing from heroin.
Yeah.
And I almost died from detox straight. I went into hallucinations for 3 days.
Yeah, I had a buddy that ended up in the hospital, on a clinical detox, basically. Had to come down off of it. And it was
I sat right in my house, and I'd wake up. I wouldn't get to sleep because I thought people were trying to break into my house.
Hallucinating.
I felt people touching me. I heard people talking.
Dang.
I saw shit.
Wild.
And I was going to work, and then I come home, and I just sit in bed all night thinking, somebody breaking in? Called the cops on myself.
Paranoid.
It was bad. That was the closest I got into like what I've never done LSD before, but I can imagine that was pretty similar. Like I was seeing all kinds of stuff. That's and wild. Feeling and so like when I talked to my counselors and doctors about it, they're like, dude, people don't make it a couple hours before either one getting themselves checked in or getting TDO'd or
been there. Not been there. I was in law enforcement.
Having an alcoholic seizure.
Yeah.
And, passing out or hitting your head and dying.
Yeah.
And at the end of my drinking career, I wasn't drinking for fun. I was drinking to stay alive.
Yeah. My buddy had it. He had it by his bed. He'd wake up, take a swig, get back, wake in the morning.
Because that's the only way I could function.
Yeah. That's wild, man. How long did it take for you to detox and come back off of it?
I mean, that was even before I went back to the second treatment.
Oh, okay.
That was May of 2020.
Okay.
I drank the entire month from the time I woke up until the time I went to bed, and then I quit cold turkey.
That's wild, man.
And then I hit treatment 2 times, and from June to July, and then September to October.
Gotcha.
In 2020, and then I just had enough, man.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was gonna do, and I didn't know what it entailed. I mean, the first thing after the first treatment, I realized what a big problem of mine was. It was my job.
Okay.
So
one of the 7, I guess, is what you were
I
doing.
I listened to a Joe Rogan podcast, and he said,
Yeah.
people don't understand.
Come on in.
In America, we work these jobs that we hate.
Yeah.
And we hate our coworkers, and we just have to continue to keep doing this.
Yeah.
Even though it's affecting everyone around us, not only ourselves.
Yeah.
And we can fucking quit.
Yeah.
And we might struggle for, a couple weeks, months, whatever.
Yeah.
But like in a pursuit of happiness, man, that changed my life too.
Yeah.
And
if you're unhappy, just like you were talking, one of the 8 steps, if one of those 8 things is out of whack, it really does, man. I know, in the past when I've had either my health, I didn't feel right, it affects my family, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've got a back issue and it's just been bad. And I know when my back's hurting, I'm probably going to be short with my wife and my kids. And that's just a selfish, narcissistic thing that I do. Involuntary as it may be, I'll notice it eventually that I'm doing it and try to self-correct, but usually my wife has snatched me up by then and been like, dude, go take a break, go stretch, do something, get your back better, Well,
that's some of the things like I've become self-aware of through my body and mind connection is that I know if things like that are going to happen, that I can either try to flip the switch on that or just say to my wife, like, hey, I'm not doing very good. You know, I'm sorry if and
that's the thing.
That'll wipe it away right there. Like,
I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to get to that point in my marriage, and I've known my wife and been with her for 20 years, but I'm still at the crux. I have the hardest time of taking myself out of a situation and just listening. I have the hardest time. Now, I'll try to identify, but I'll also try to have a solution. Yeah. That's my problem. I'm solution based. And instead of listening I can do it with you guys because, I love you as people, but it's not like I'm not going to drive my point.
Yeah.
But with like relationships and stuff, I feel like, well, I didn't do that perfect, but I did this and I did this, and I just keep, God, why can't I just shut up?
My new question to my wife is, when she's talking to me about something, I say, do you want support or do you want solutions?
I like that.
Because that was the biggest thing in our relationship sometimes, is that I was very solution oriented. How do I fix your problem?
Yeah.
Because if I fix your problem, that's going to make me happy when I wasn't fixing my own problems.
Yeah.
But all she wanted me to do was listen. She just
listen.
wanted to vent about her day.
Yeah.
She didn't want to hear how she could fix it.
I'm so guilty of that, man. And I'm trying, I'm identified it.
Yeah. I mean,
I have identified it and I'm working on it, And that's the thing. It's out of love, like you said, it really is out of love. Like, I don't want people to be unhappy. I don't want my kids to be unhappy. I don't want my wife to be unhappy.
Right.
But sometimes they're unhappy when I'm trying to make them happy and it makes me unhappy. Damn,
and I think that's another thing we think of as men that we have to do.
Yeah. Like just constant provide happiness. I'm the worst at it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's on you to be happy. I just want to be here to enjoy it and
we
try
have to be
provide
the breadwinners.
value.
We have to make the kids happy, the wife happy,
Yep. Which I'm okay with.
It's a collective experience.
It is. I agree. Ever since I think we started getting these delusions that we needed the bigger house and the bigger car and all this stuff, and whenever that was glorified and enunciated to perfection within the media and within society, then we lost kind of individual roles and goals, which can be good and it can be bad. Yeah. It just depends on the dynamic that you're trying to live with.
And you guys work together, don't you?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. And I've killed her 2 or 3 times now. We work, that's the good thing about working with her, is that we've worked through some stuff, and we are together all the time. So when I get those times away, she needs her times to decompress. She's an introvert and I'm extroverted. I like talking to people and I like doing stuff like that, but she has to refuel that battery a lot more. So I'm trying to get to that, like identifying her battery is going low when like the house, the things that she normally typically does for herself start to go down. I've just got to be more aware of that. I'm so unaware. I get so stuck in my own mind, man. It's dumb.
Well, I mean, I think that's a normal response though. We beat ourselves up about that stuff, man, but like that's normal shit. And the thing is, it's not everybody else's responsibility to have to put up with our stuff.
True.
You know what I mean? So, when I talk about the unhealed trauma and I talk about the parts of us, like, all that stuff has an explanation. It has a why of where it came from. Our emotional responses to things came from somewhere, and so when we look at that stuff, like I look at how I raised my kids, man, and it's just like, in a lot of ways, I raised them the same way I was raised, and I hate that so much.
Yeah, I'm trying to break that too.
Like I hate it so much. So now all I can do from that is build from here, and try to, be their safe person, and let them know that that I love them and that we're connected and all that kind of stuff. But and the same goes with the relationship. You know what I mean? Like I'm an introverted person, and Rachel is, about half and half. You know what I mean? But the problem is I don't like people, but I need people. You know what I mean? Like I need to be connected to people to feel alive. You know what I mean? And so I can't just sit in my house all the time. As much as I love it and I want to, I just can't, because I will just, I'll get in my head and I'll use this stupid social media stuff and get in these holes, man. And it's no good. So I've got to stay connected to people.
Yeah. It's good to have, that's why I love this podcast. And that's why I'm so glad I brought it back, is that I might not normally talk to people with opposing views, because typically you, in your circle, you find like-minded individuals that, kind of agree on things and roll with it.
Yep.
And I genuinely enjoy this.
Yeah.
I genuinely do. And it comes from a place of love. Again, it's like, I just want to know how you feel about this. Am I judging you? No, not unless you kill somebody or did something malicious, then I'm like, okay, dude, we need to, But it's like, I don't know.
We just all have different experiences. And if we can, again, get back to being good human beings, as good human beings, we like to hang out with each other.
Yeah.
No matter what we believe in, or,
Yeah.
Like we don't have to push our beliefs on each other.
Yep.
Because
exactly. And I feel me and Chris could go to a freaking Slipknot concert. Him, believing what he believes in self and all that, and me believing what I believe, and be able to detach from the crux of that.
Yeah.
And go enjoy something that is what it is. It's entertainment, and that's the organic thing that people have got to get back to.
Yeah.
We've got to get back to that. I don't care if you're red or you're blue. I just don't. I genuinely don't. I don't care about it.
Yeah.
Let's go. If you want to do something fun, let's do something fun. If you want to, go shoot guns, or if you want to sit and read poetry, I don't care. We may do that once, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I get it, man. I'm that way for most people. There's some cases, man, like the extreme one way or the other. I can't hang with that. You know what I mean? Like I can't get on board with it, but I can still respect them as a human being, but I probably won't go fishing with them.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like, I can respect people as long as they're not hurting people. When people start hurting other people with their words or their actions, then it's no good.
It's hate, no matter where it comes from.
Yeah. And
if you're spewing hate,
it's ignorant hate. It's ignorance with the fact that whatever they're against, they're not taking the time to understand it. Because if you really understand it, there's no way you can justify hating another human being just because of whatever. Yeah. You just can't. Like,
and
I can't.
All sides, too. Like, it doesn't matter.
Like, I can't wrap my head around racism to save my life.
Yeah.
Like, I do not understand how we allowed people to treat people like that back then. Like, why didn't somebody stand up and say, what the fuck are y'all doing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why are you doing this?
And I think racism was one of those things that just kind of kept rolling and
Yeah.
kept evolving into different things.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like what we're dealing with now with like certain parties and the evolution of those parties into something that it never originally was, but they're still calling it this because it started and it evolved into this.
Yep.
So whether it's like, you know, with slavery and racism and all of that stuff, it started out in a completely different fashion.
Yep.
It started out as labor and a hierarchy.
Yep.
That's the way it started. And it evolved into what we currently saw in the 40s and 50s. That's what it evolved into. So it became something horrendous,
Yeah,
you know,
it's-
that's undeniably and inexplicably terrible.
Yeah.
You know?
It's just treating people terrible. And
Yeah.
that's the part I don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't get it. And I never will. And even today, treating people the way people who use drugs are treated. You know what I mean? Like, it is horrible.
Yeah. What's the stigma?
Yeah.
You know, it's like when I was growing up, you know, I went to Reiner, I went to Auburn, and we didn't have any black people. That's just the way it was. We had one, and it was like, I saw that person as that person. Now, being in a small rural area, it was inward this, inward that. And I, even at that age, was like, that's unfair, you know? And what sucks is when you're around it for so long and you see it for so long, and then we got into an altercation, we got jumped by a bunch of African-American males. It almost was a seed that got watered. You know what I mean? It was one of those situations where it was like, I really had to fight that. And there were times where I felt that way.
Yeah.
I felt that way. I was like, okay, this is how it is. Okay, cool. This is how, you know, I understand it now. And I fought that.
Yeah.
And there was a time in my life where I'd be listening to Dr. Dre, you know, with 415s in the back of my trunk, doing that and passing by folks that I would call unsightly names.
Yeah.
And I was guilty of that. And am I that person now? Hell no.
Right.
No. I've understood myself better since then.
Yeah, and that's the scary part of what we were taught and raised to believe as children. You know what I mean? Especially Generation X, man. Like, we were raised different. You know what I mean? And the biggest issue I have with Generation X, man, is we don't stand up and do anything. Like, we see all this shit happening. And Generation X, like, we came from a place, you know, you see the memes and stuff where we drank out of water hoses and we'd go outside and then come back home till it was dark and stuff like that. Because that's really what we did.
Yeah,
you know,
that's 100% what I did.
There weren't any seatbelts in cars, and there wasn't. You know, you can look at our playgrounds where we played at school. There was no safety protocols.
Dude, those wheels of death that you spun around on and like you get flung off of. How do we not die, man?
Exactly, and you know, we survived a lot of that kind of stuff. And so Generation X is, you know, we've got such good common sense and so much good, because we came between the boomers who, you know, you work your ass off till you die because that's what you're put on this earth to do.
Yep.
And then you've got the millennials, Gen Z, who work smart, not hard. And then you've got Generation X in the middle who's just sitting there just looking at both of them like, what the fuck are y'all doing?
I've never heard that, and I love it.
Nobody's standing up for either side. You know what I mean? It's like Generation X could stand up and defend the gay community, the LGBTQ plus community. They could stand up against the people who use, you know, for the people who use drugs. They could stand up to some of these systems, but just not for whatever reason. Some are not, you know what I mean? The ones that and they're so smart, man, such good people, but I get it too. I understand why, you know, he was talking about before we went to break about the future of this thing, man. I can tell you, dude, I'm not doing this shit forever. Like, I'm not working in mental health and substance use forever. Like, this is not my end game. I just don't. I've been doing it for a while, and I think it's getting close to time to do something else. You know what I mean?
Well, because we take on secondary trauma from
vicarious trauma all day,
from helping other people.
Sure.
You
You
know,
can't
so-
help but like take on somebody's load if you really genuinely care.
Yeah, and to do it for a living, man. I mean, it's heavy. You know what I mean? It's like my whole life, and so have my kids got neglected from my work? Absolutely. Has it cost me 2 marriages now, absolutely. And I'm not saying that was the whole reason. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, I had some unhealed shit going on.
Yeah.
But when you dedicate your whole life to trying to help the most hurting people, man, I don't want to do this shit forever.
And I feel like also, as coming from the places that you've come from, in order to help that person in a certain way, you have to revisit that shit.
Oh yeah,
over and over and over, and that can't help.
Oh, I mean,
I feel good.
I've
sometimes.
always been able to just like I disassociate from it. Like I'm able to disassociate from the time I go to work until the time I leave. Like I don't take any of that stuff in. Man.
You don't try to relate like in context, or
to a certain extent. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I've done peer support for a long time.
Yeah.
But you know, the thing about peer support is just mutuality. You know, it ain't about having a similar story. Like all human beings have a similar story. You know what I mean?
This is true.
This is about you're in a fucked up place right now. You know, yeah, I've been there, but this is temporary, man. This ain't forever. But you know, even the peer support stuff, man. Like I'm just kind of over it, man. Like I just, without talking too much shit, like I'm just over the peer support system. Like I'm just over all of it, man. Like I just feel like we're so wrapped up into the red tape and the paperwork and the meeting this certain criteria and this Medicaid bullshit. Like I know it takes money to help these folks, but it takes time more than it takes money. You know, when I've been doing this work in CSBs and shit, man, literally I spend probably 10% of my time with people, and the other 90% is paperwork, meetings, traveling. You know, when you work in rural communities and you got to drive from fucking Floyd to Narrows, you know, that takes a minute. You know what I mean? So,
dude, what got me is when, you know, I'd be called in to sit on an ECO and somebody was either, you know, substance abuse coming down, mental, whatever, you know, the whole gamut of getting an ECO. And the first freaking thing that they would ask, without fail, how do you intend, do you have insurance? How do you intend on taking? And I'm just like, there's that cog. Yeah. There it is, just a spinning. That's okay. We're worried about that right now. This person's over there in a traumatic situation.
And now they got to stress about that.
And now they're worried about money or having somebody in a clear mental state provide an insurance card or something. It's like,
it's just more barriers,
man.
man. It's just more barriers to keep people. That's why a lot of people don't want to come and seek help, man, because they get into that. And it's just like, here we go. I got to fucking tell my story again. I got to relive this shit again. I got to sign this. I got to do this. And so, you know, what's the outcome? You know what I mean? When do we get better? And so that's my biggest thing with it, man. It's just like, when do we ever get better? And so, you know, for me personally, it's just like I can help people no matter where I go. I can work at Walmart and fucking help people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, because, you know, doing this kind of work, you just naturally connect to people. You know what I mean? Like I just naturally connect to people, and to some people, you know, some people can't stand me, and I understand why. I get that.
Yeah.
But the reality is, man, is that we all have the ability to help other people when we want to.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is, a lot of people just don't want to. We want to help ourselves. And, you know, I feel like that I've been doing this work for so long, and then realized for part of the time I was doing it for the wrong reasons. Yeah. You know what I mean? And now when I do it, like I'm tired when I get home. Like I don't want to do shit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just exhausted. And then weekends, same way. And, you know, I'm just tired. But more than that, I just want to, you know, I've done this for long enough to where I want to be able to enjoy my life now. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I just, when do I get to enjoy this shit that I've healed from? Yeah. That I've worked so hard to not in my life for. You know, when do I get to enjoy that shit? Sure. So, you know.
That's a choice.
I give it maybe 5 more years. You know what I mean? By the time I'm 50, maybe I'll be a Walmart greeter or some shit.
Well, that's why I switched to, you know, instead of counseling or, you know, like I like the peer support thing, but I don't think I can do it forever. That's why I want to be in the education or program development, you know, implementation type of thing. So you don't even need to get to there. Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing is how can we get more people to ask for help?
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is having a safe place for people to go for help.
True.
You know what
Very
I
true.
mean? Like, and that was, the 401.
401,
That
yeah.
was what that was. It was a safe place for people to go and connect.
Is that still there?
Yeah, it's still there.
Side smile.
I'm gonna try not to talk too much shit, but yeah, it's still there, man.
Okay.
I kind of wish they'd change the name. I wish they changed it to something else.
Different address.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's not the 401 that I built. You know what I mean? It's just different now, and the whole peer services thing is, in 2018 when I left, or 2018 when I started the 401, we were like New River Valley was like the model for peer support in the state. Like, we were doing some big stuff, and now it's like, I don't know where the peers are in New River Valley. You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, I know they're out there, like, I know people that work at community health centers, peers and stuff, but I don't know any peers anywhere else in New River Valley, and that worries me, because I don't know where the support's coming from.
Sure.
And, but the good thing is New River Valley, like, the overdose rates are low, which is good. The hepatitis C stats are going up, which is bad.
Was that come from sharing needles and?
Yeah, sharing needles and, many different ways. But, so that's going up, and so that's a concern. And, I don't know, man, just this community, New River Valley's a great community, but there's a little bit too much of all that doesn't happen here going on.
A little bit of naivete.
Yeah, and it's definitely going on. You
Sure.
know what I mean? So I think that, the local organization stuff, they've done a fairly good job. But I think my biggest concern is because a lot of them's in fucking jail.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you can't, your overdose number is going to go down if you put everybody in jail. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying New River Valley's doing that, but what I'm saying is that there needs to be some more connection around here, and they're not going to get rid of me that easy. You know what I mean? I'm still going to be around.
Mm-hmm.
Still knocking.
We were just talking about that connection piece.
Yeah. It's all about the connection, man. Having a safe place to connect, and bringing back the compassion piece about just giving a shit about people, looking beyond the drugs. This ain't about drugs. This ain't about mental health, depression, suicidal stuff. This is a human being who's got a story, who's been through some shit. So let's start with the story.
And how do we do that? Because you're talking about it for 16 years. You were just in a vicious cycle. There's a wheel spinning.
Mm-hmm.
You'd get in there, participate, be slung out. Okay, and then you're like, well, I got to get back in here because this is the only place that really is in your head where you thought
my safe place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we get people to not keep jumping back on the same wheel that's not working?
Well, I think it's important for whatever it is you believe in, whatever your passion is, then do that and help other people do that. You know what I'm saying? So if your passion is, say, 12-step recovery, and that's what you're all about, and that's what you want to do, then do that. You know what I'm saying? Help other people who do that. But do not say that that's the only way.
Yes.
Do not make other people feel inferior because they don't follow the abstinence-based model of recovery.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like, let people be who they are. And I think some of the literature needs to be changed in some of these programs. You
The
know what I mean?
wording,
Yeah. Like,
language.
yeah.
What
like,
about the approach?
the approach is going to be up to individuals and communities, man. This is going to be a community effort.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's going to have to be each individual community recognizing stigma, harm reduction, addiction, recovery, what all this shit really means.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Trauma-informed care. It's going to take communities like us as individuals can do our part by working on ourselves and looking at our own biases and shit. But really, it takes a community understanding addiction. All of us getting on the same page. I'll give you an example. All this bullshit about fentanyl, right? Fentanyl's in weed. Or you touch fentanyl, you're going to die from an overdose. Yeah. It's all bullshit, man. Like, you would have to be in a room for like 2 hours in a sealed room with no air with a shitload of fentanyl to overdose on it, right? You can't smoke it in weed like a joint. You can't smoke it like that. It's not going to do anything. You're not even going to feel the effects of it. So why are we telling people this shit?
Fear.
It's fear to keep them in a box.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So all this stuff we all have to come together and get on the same page about this thing, and understand that it doesn't matter if you go to 12 steps, if you go to Jesus, if you go to be a pagan or a Wiccan, or if you go to whatever. Do your thing, but just don't try to push your shit on other people and make them feel inferior because it's not your way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just let people be. I really think that, you know, I don't get political and I don't give a shit about politics, but, you know, if we want to make America great again, just get rid of the fucking internet. Go back to 1993, get rid of the internet, get rid of all that shit, leave it alone.
The persuasion is real.
And then we'll go back to 1993.
So,
you know
dude,
what I'm saying?
I'm glad you said that. The persuasion it's so real, and the indoctrination and everything that is just crammed down our throats.
Yeah, it's too much.
I mean,
And you can
people
make-
believe anything.
Dude, I could paint something and go on a campaign, and I bet I could make people believe that blue is red and red is blue.
Yeah.
If you do it right. Because people are so malleable, and they're so influenced by, well, if it's on here, it's got to be real. Oh, and let's see, my favorite rapper just endorsed that the blue color is red. It's like, oh man,
because people don't want to think for themselves, and I think that's where
it kills me.
I got stuck too. Is that comfortable?
Yeah,
And they say you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. But people don't want to do that because it's uncomfortable. But if you want to heal, or you want to start exploring, educating yourself, finding out about your own self, and healing whatever is going on with you, you got to get uncomfortable.
Yeah, and you got to approach yourself just like you approached yourself. However it works, whether it's through LSD trip. I'm not advocating people do that, but
I am.
He is.
No, I'm really not. I'm really not.
I advocate for everyone has their own pathway.
Exactly.
No matter what it is.
That is it. And the thing is I feel like there's not enough programming out there for identifying the root.
Right.
I feel like we're slapping a prescription in somebody's hand. We are slapping a pamphlet in somebody's hand. We're slapping like stomach stapling is the issue, or this is the issue, instead of saying, why are you doing this?
Yeah. What's it doing for you?
What is this? What void is this filling in your life?
Yeah. And some of it ain't even a void, man. Some of it is just a response to safety.
Endorphins or just feeling.
Yeah. It's some sort of response to something.
Yeah.
Like, again, at 2 years old, like when I'm being taken in and out of foster cares and shit, like I can't tell anyone or ask any questions, or I can't fight and say, no, I don't want to go with them, or I can't run away and go be with who I want to be with. I've got to sit there and internalize all that shit, man, and that doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Like, my adoption trauma has affected every single relationship I've ever had my entire life. Every single one.
Is it an abandonment type thing?
It was the abandonment piece for me. It was because, you know, everybody's going to leave me eventually. You know what I mean? That was my mindset. Like, Rachel's actually the first person who's taught me this. Well, so far, you know, it's still early, but I'm just kidding. But, no, man, like, I never believed that anybody loved me, man. Never. Like, I never believed that till I was 43 years old. And, I learned that from my dog.
And you would you would seek out approval.
Everywhere.
Right? Yeah.
Everywhere, dude. And, like, social media was a way to do it. Like, and I still do it sometimes. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say that some of my posts aren't gaslighting.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I try to fucking get people to think outside the box and to, you know, last year I did, you know, in the 12 steps we have amends. You know, there's the 8th and 9th step are about making amends.
Okay.
Well, I did the opposite amends. I went and confronted the people who hurt me.
Ah.
And, you know, that didn't go too well for some people, and it was pretty painful for me as well, but it was something I had to do.
Yeah.
Because what was going on in my mind was that all these people thought that I was some monster that I wasn't, right? And that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
And so what I will tell people is, if you ever message me anything, just know that I keep it in my phone for life. And I will use it against you. I will use it against you. I promise. If you hurt me, you know what I'm saying? Because we need to be able to stand up for ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, and, you know, I'll just give you an example. You know, I was sexually assaulted in recovery, right? And, you know, I have messages, months of messages begging this person, just stop. I don't need this. I don't want to do this. And then, you know, I give her a fucking ride one day. Next thing I know, she's in my lap, and I just froze, man. And I got blamed for it. I said, I was told this was your fault. You should have said no. You should have did this. You should have done that. You're just doing what you've always done. You know, you're just manipulating women and doing whatever. And I was like, okay, they're right. I'm a piece of shit. This is what I've always done. And the reality is that's not the case at all. You know what I mean? And I had to stand up for myself in that moment. It was a very important part of my shadow work therapy that I had to confront this person.
Yeah.
And that was one of 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild, man.
Not all sexual assaults, but yeah, man. Like, I was actually asked, how are you, a 6'6" man, going to let somebody do that to you? What?
Yeah.
What the fuck are you talking about, man? Like, because I'm a 6'6" man, I don't have a trauma response to where I don't know what to do right now.
Yeah.
Like, do I punch this motherfucker in the face?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Do I shove their head through the window? Or do I just sit here and just hope it all stops?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what to do right now.
And we're as men, we're just expected. No, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
What's happening is a good thing.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the sex thing, man, was like I thought that was it. Like, because before I got into recovery, dude, I'd only been with like 2 women in my life. You know what I'm saying? Like, that wasn't a thing. But then once I got off of drugs, it was like, here came the womanizing, because that gave me that feeling the drugs did. You know what I mean? They must love me. One of these women will love me, surely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's wild, man. Trauma is such a weird thing.
It's the real epidemic, man. But nobody wants to admit it.
Dude, and it happens in so many different facets. Like, for me, I try to self-preserve. Like, I'm I feel like it's up to me. It's only up to me. I have to preserve my life. I have to preserve my happiness, you know, and I am guilty to a fault of cutting out things and people that I feel are a detriment to my health. Mm-hmm. And some people will say, that's a good thing, you know, but then I've got that guilt, you know, within me that's like, well, they were having a problem and I wasn't there for them. I only focused on how their issue made me feel, you know, and I'm like, damn, which is right?
Mm-hmm. Sometimes you got to do that. I mean, I learned out of coming out of that third treatment that I had to start setting boundaries with people that, including my parents, that I didn't like.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah. It's
but
tough.
like I had to do it for myself, or I didn't have a chance.
Yeah.
At, you know, getting to where I am now.
Yeah. I had, you know, being in the music business for as long as I was basically, when I became tour manager and, you know, and all that, I was basically a babysitter. And a lot of it, you know, you're touring, you know, there's a lot of things that musicians do, you know, and I felt like the dad, and I was responsible, made sure everybody was on time, did what we had to do. But when I got out of the music business, I got a severe hatred for babysitting people, like a severe hatred for it, to the fact to where I've had friends that when I came back to Virginia, you know, it's like 20 years later, they expect you to be the same person as when you left, you know, and when you're not the same belligerent drunk, you know, or you're not the same good time friend that every time we see each other, we have to drink 80 beers or else it's not a good time. I'm not that person. I have evolved to a family person, to somebody that preserves myself and my happiness. And in a roundabout way, like, I've cut those people in those situations out for my sanity, because it started taking my happiness away. When I would share certain things, we had, you know, a hobby that I really, really liked doing, and certain people that were involved in that couldn't seem to just have fun. It had to be spring break. And it's like, damn it.
Yeah.
This isn't fun for me. I want to sit and relax and do this thing and laugh and congregate as 40-plus-year-old men.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about this and go down oh man, you remember when we were, and it's like, I do. The same as you asked me last week if I remembered it when you were hammered. And it just started getting to the point where I was like, the squeaky little freaking thing that it just started annoying the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And I don't know if giving up on people, it wasn't like a give up situation. And, people have told me, you've got to set your boundaries. Just set a boundary. And if they respect it, cool. If they don't, so be it,
Yeah, I mean, the main thing I think is just being who you are.
Yeah.
I mean, it may be like that right now, maybe like that today, and tomorrow it may be different. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just think that again, we all need to be allowed to be who we are.
Agree. And that's another struggle. It's like, this is who this person is. Why am I judging?
Well, it's that's who they are, but you're at a place in your life where you don't want to be around it, and that's okay. It doesn't matter why.
Yeah.
You don't have to justify or give reasons why. It just is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like you were saying before, like living the way you do, maybe they see that.
Yeah.
And they eventually come to you and like, hey, I want some of that.
Yeah.
Can you help me out? Or,
Yeah. Yeah. I feel bad. It's just kind of a natural feeling, you know?
And I would just get to the why of that. Why does it make you feel bad? You know what I mean? Because it could be a multitude of reasons, and
I think
usually it just comes from some sort of not really people pleasing, but more just I don't know. Like you just care, you know what I mean? Like you care about people.
That's what
and
it
that's
is.
what we've done all our lives, like I always wanted to people please and make others happy because I thought that's what made me happy. But I was missing the one person out of the millions of people that I was helping and making happy that needed to be happy.
Yep.
And that was me.
And that's what I've had conversations with, my wife and stuff. And she's like, you're not wrong for feeling this way. You are doing these things with these people to be happy. Mm-hmm. And these people have stopped making you happy. Mm-hmm. It's not the people, it's who they become. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just, you're just at different places in your life. You know what I'm saying? Like, and, for like, I can't stand to be around drunk people. Like, I don't drink and it just makes me uncomfortable because it just feels like an unpredictable, unsafe situation for me, no matter who it is. Like, I just don't do it. Yeah. And so, and that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care. And the same goes with anything else, man. Like, for me to be able to say that I have to be an individual and I have to be authentic and be who I am, I also have to give that same respect to others and that same thing to others. So,
but you don't have to be around it.
No,
you can respect it. And
they gotta come up with their own,
Yeah. It's tough, man. It's a fine balance.
It's okay to feel that. Like, it's okay to feel that. Like, that's what I really learned is like, I give myself space to feel shitty about not talking to this person anymore. Or, I mean, we're human beings, and exploring that. And like, I take mine, with the whole retraining the brain, learning about my brain, learning about feelings, emotions, all of this, I take it back like days, months. Like, why am I angry right now? Well, let me see what happened a couple minutes ago, a couple days ago, a couple weeks ago. Like, all of that could have led up to this moment right now. Yeah. To see why I'm feeling that way. Yeah,
I get it, man. I think, because I never had like, any real substance abuse, from a father figure or anything like that. That was never an issue for me. And alcohol was never really an issue for me until I went on the road. And we had a couple alcoholics, no real hard drug users, but alcohol to me is a hard drug if you use it wrong.
I mean, it's a mind-altering substance.
Yeah. And, there's a balance of having fun and relaxing and just being annoying and belligerent. And, it's that line that once I didn't have to do that anymore, it's kind of like, I don't know. Once you get out of what you do, you might find your tolerance for folks might decrease.
Yeah. Sometimes didn't you drink?
Yeah.
Just so you could deal with them?
No. I was. I've always just kind of been. I've been hyper aware, because my parents told me when I was young, kind of how I was born and, you know, all that. So I've always been, even in my like 24 Coors Lights deep, I could go, all right, we got to stop. All right, clear up. All right. There's never been a point to where I've been out of control or doing it for a reason other than just, hey, I just want to chill. It's never been like I do it to relax. If I have a cold beer to relax, but it's not.
I was the same way. Like I won't say all like 100% because my wife will hear this and be like, why do you lie to everybody? But like a lot of my drug and alcohol use was because of, I mean, I just got diagnosed with ADHD a couple years ago. And when I took medication for that for the first time, it's exactly what alcohol and drugs made me feel like. It leveled me out into this like focus. So I was never like out of control.
Yeah.
A couple times maybe, but like I'm just very hyperactive.
Yeah.
And you give me some alcohol, like, you know, I might get a little louder. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, I was always like, all right, well, how are we getting home? You know,
You were aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's yeah. So once I got away from that to where it was kind of like my unsaid job, it was like just expected for the tour manager to take care of the people and stuff. It was just kind of like an unsaid rule. And yeah, I don't know, either that or I hate to use the word grew up, you know, because I mean, grown men drink and grown men act whatever, but I just grew out of needing to be surrounded by that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have a different life. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
kind of evolving.
Yeah. And you know, if you weren't married and you didn't have kids, you know, who knows what you'd be doing right now?
Yeah.
You may still be right there with them doing the same thing.
It's quite possible.
And so, you know, I think that we just need to be, you know, really truly honest with who we are and what we're doing with our lives, and if that's really what we want to be doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what I had to recognize. Like, is this really what I want to be doing with my life? And you know, when I look at the drugs and stuff, man, like I've had to take opiates recently for kidney stones, man. I've got a bottle of like 7.5 Lortabs at home that I've had for months, man. I don't want to do drugs anymore. You know, I don't give a shit about cocaine. I don't give a shit about heroin. I don't care about any of that. And if people want to say, oh, well, that's because you're smoking weed, you know, let me tell you something, man. If I hadn't started with the cannabis, I would have fucking killed myself. That's the bottom line. Yeah. And when I look at my life now compared to the 16 years of my abstinence, man, I wouldn't trade this for anything. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no way, because I'm finally able to be myself and enjoy a medicine that's been proven to help people. You know what I mean? And it helps me. Yeah. And so heroin doesn't help me. It doesn't do shit for me. Alcohol doesn't do shit for me. We give alcohol too much credit. It's the leading killer in this country. Yeah. And we act like it's not a big deal. You know what I mean? I don't understand how we can justify prohibition for drugs, but not, you know, alcohol. The reason alcohol got legalized was because people were making their own and killing themselves with it. Yeah. We're doing the same shit with drugs.
Just legalize it and regulate it and tax it. That's the goal, right?
I mean, I think the goal is, you know, harm reduction. You know what I mean? That's the goal.
Is decriminalize?
I mean, anything will help. You know what I mean? Like, if people are out here having to go buy pills off the street that's cut with fentanyl and they're dying, you know, we've got more treatment options now than we've ever had in history. And at the exact same time, more people are dying from overdoses than ever in history.
Is it because of the availability of the street drugs, the black market drugs?
It's a lot of things. That's part of it. Part of it's a system, and part of it's because we're addressing the wrong issue. You know what I mean? We're not addressing the right stuff. We're addressing the drugs like that's the primary problem.
Drugs aren't the issue.
It's not. It's the folks who have been through so much shit. Yeah. And, you know, we're sending them off into these silos, and, you know, they're relapsing or they're overdosing or they're still losing their kids. They're doing all these things. We can't figure out why. Yeah. It's because the issue hasn't been addressed. We're just looking at
That just seems like I've got 2 mental health professionals and 2 recovered addicts. sitting here telling me the exact same thing. Why in the hell is not at the forefront of every single available clinic, recovery program, 12-step? Why is it not identification right off the bat?
Money's a lot of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So
Like,
it goes
there's-
back to that.
There's a lot of money wrapped up into the substance use treatment world, the mental health treatment world. But again, man, this is going to take communities getting on board and understanding that, you know, people who use drugs and people who are struggling with mental health stuff are people.
Yeah.
Just like your sons and daughters and husbands and wives and moms and dads. They're all people, regardless of what it looks like.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So how do we get that, and then I'll let you say this, how do we get that, how do we force that into our system to say their issue can't be fixed with jail time. It can't be fixed with this. It can't be fixed with that. We have to solve the actual issue. And like you said, damn near 100% of the freaking time, it's trauma.
Yep.
I mean, I think it's doing what we're doing and things like this.
Yeah.
Because then other people will see it and be like, oh shit. Like when I told my story, I told Chris this, like people came out of the woodworks to ask for help from me because,
yeah,
you know, like I've been here for 30 years and I was in the party scene and I was able to overcome, you know, I can't say I'll never do it again, but I feel pretty confident.
Yeah.
And just getting more stories out there.
Yeah.
Getting back to compassion, getting back to being good human beings. But we also, like Chris was saying, like alcohol is glamorized now. It's just pushed all in your face.
Yeah.
If you're having a bad day or a long day, drink. If you're, you know, feeling shitty, drink. If you're celebrating, drink.
Yeah.
If you're happy about something, drink. Well, when do you not drink?
Yeah.
You know? And I'm not saying
breakfast drinks, lunch
yeah,
drinks.
I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with alcohol. Like
Yeah.
if I could still do it, I'd do it. But
Yeah. It just didn't work for you.
Yeah, it didn't work for me.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah. Like I said, man, it is going to take community effort. You know, it's going to take a lot of education and training. I think that a lot of public officials need some training on this stuff.
I was going to say, how do you get it to the masses? Like podcasts, obviously, we'll hit 100, 200, 300
I just
people.
think there's a lot
but
there's a lot of educated people out there that are not very smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a difference in education and having
Like
smarts.
you can read a whole bunch of things in books,
Yeah.
but until I had that one counselor that had the lived experience,
Yeah.
then that I could relate to, then I couldn't, like I wasn't going to change.
It seems like such a freaking vicious system and a vicious cycle. It's terrible.
There is a shift happening though. I mean, it is, and I don't think it'll happen in my lifetime, but I'm hoping in like my kids or their kids' lifetime, it'll be a shift from, you know, all these labels and diagnoses and all this stuff, and we'll actually look at the person.
Yes,
and
an
not the
individual.
diagnosis.
It's
you know?
got to be an individual situation.
It is.
Right?
It is. Every individual's different. Every story's different. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And that's really what got me with my life and where I went from 2004 up to this point was just like, I was just doing what I was told. You know what I mean? I was never allowed to think for myself. I was always told, you're doing this wrong.
Yeah.
You're not praying right. You know what I mean? You're not doing this right. You're not doing that right. I'm like, well, why can't I just do what I want?
Yeah.
You know, that saying, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Well, why the fuck not?
Yeah, why not?
It's my cake. I can eat it if I want. What are you talking about? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So,
Yeah.
you know, man, I'm big on the individuality piece. That's my thing. And the trauma piece. Like I've got a training I do. So it's like a 6 or 8 hour training that I've trained police officers on
you were telling
demystifying
me about
substance
that.
use and harm reduction. But again, you know, are they ready for it? And, you know, the same with trauma-informed care. I've got a whole book where I can set up any community organization, anything with trauma-informed care system. Nobody's ready for it, you know what I mean? Because it doesn't happen here. It doesn't happen in Montgomery County. There's no IV drug users in Montgomery County.
Yeah.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Really? I know for a fact they are because they come to Roanoke to get shit. You know what I mean? Like,
I was
I
talking
know.
about that today.
Yeah, so it's, there just needs to be some education and training on this thing, because what we've been doing for 100 years ain't working.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, this ain't 1930 anymore.
Yeah, like you said, you've got more options than they've ever had for sobriety, for mental health.
Whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
You got to forget about the war on drugs.
Yeah.
That was a war on
done.
black people. That wasn't a war on drugs. That was a war on people to get them all in a place. You know what I mean? Because if you notice, when the crack cocaine came around, exactly where it went, it all went to the same places.
It's just like liquor stores.
Well, just like the Oxycontin with Big Pharma. When Oxycontin did the Big Pharma thing in Virginia, West Virginia, for the coal miners. You know what I mean? They knew what was going on, and that's the shitty part. And the same thing's going on now with the fentanyl. Like, we know where the fentanyl comes from. Like, it's not rocket science. If my ass in Southwest Virginia knows where it comes from, I'm sure other people do.
Yeah.
They won't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So
It just makes money, man.
yeah. So
It
that's
all
why
makes money.
That's why it's important for us as individuals to figure out who we are, so we can be the best version of ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we find that
Preach.
through self-discovery.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Be authentic, man. Just be who you are. And if it doesn't matter what it is. Like, it doesn't matter. Just because I think certain things are silly or doesn't make sense doesn't mean that it's wrong.
Or that it won't work for somebody.
Yeah, that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
And I ain't shit. Like, my time on this earth is very short.
Yeah.
And then forever is a long time after that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what I say ain't gonna last long.
Yep.
Do you, man?
Yep.
You know what I mean?
So that being said, let's wrap this one up. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to give each of you a chance. If somebody is listening right now that might need assistance, might need some words, say what you feel and just leave it at that. You can go first, John.
I mean, I always say that asking for help is the most powerful thing you can do. Asking for help is not weak. I'm sitting here as a grown-ass man.
Yeah.
And when I was able to finally ask for help for what I was going through was the most powerful thing I ever did. So if you're struggling with whatever it may be, it doesn't have to be drugs and alcohol. Maybe you don't think it's mental health. Maybe you're just struggling because you want to get into the gym.
Yeah. Yep. Just ask.
Ask somebody.
Yep.
And if they don't know, they probably know somebody.
Yeah. So lean on somebody. Accept the help.
Please,
Yeah.
please, 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 please ask for help.
Yep. Chris, what about you, brother?
Mine's kind of the opposite.
This is why I love the podcast.
Yeah, no, I'm all about it's up to us as individuals to figure out who we are.
Okay.
And I think to do that, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. I am big on removing labels. I think that if we remove some of those labels that we've been given, and I'm not saying go against doctors' advice, and if you've been diagnosed with, bipolar disorder, don't stop taking your meds and doing your shit. But what I'm saying is look at the root of trauma of where this all started and remove some labels and figure out who you really are. And I think once we figure out who we really are, then we can make our own choice of where we want to go and what we want to do. I mean, we really literally could do anything we want.
Yep.
Like, other than, the obvious, but, literally there's nothing stopping me from doing what I want. I don't want to kill people. I don't want to hurt people. I just want to leave a good life for my kids, man.
There you go.
So I think that's the thing, is just figure out who you are.
Yep.
But
Well,
I
guys-
needed help to get to him to understand.
See, and that's
that.
the thing. I feel like your journey has been arduous.
That's a big word. I don't know what that word means.
Tortured.
Yeah.
It has been hard for you.
Yeah.
And you have gotten to that point. And through your journey, his journey might not be over.
Right.
And through that, you ask for help. I think we're just on this path that everybody's got their own individual way. And eventually, I think what it'll boil down to for everybody is that decision.
Yep.
Getting that mind right, figuring it out for what it is that either hurts or helps you, and go all in.
Then you got to want to stop
You have to want.
doing whatever it may be.
It's a want to be better, right? It's not just a Band-Aid.
I think you got to believe in yourself, man.
Yeah.
Like, really. And people can take
Sometimes
that
you need
how
that
they
little
want.
kick in the ass.
think it's
though.
yeah.
Certainly. But you got to believe in yourself. And you know, remove, when I say remove, like even the faith, like the deities and stuff, just take all that away for a minute and just like, who are you without all that shit?
Yeah.
Who are you without all those labels, without the religion, without the diagnoses? Like, who are you really? And you might be surprised at what you find.
That's deep. We'll leave you guys on that. Until next time, I'm Rob with the Commotion Podcast. Figure out who the hell you are. We'll see you next time.